The Oregon Trail stretched nearly 2,000 miles across rivers, open plains, deserts, and mountains. For the families who traveled it, the journey was far more than a wagon ride west. It meant leaving behind familiar homes, packing nearly everything they owned into a space only a few feet wide, and walking beside their oxen for months toward a place they had never seen. Tonight, we are going to discover what it was really like to travel the Oregon Trail in 1849, from the difficult choices made before departure to the ordinary routines, friendships, hardships, and quiet moments that carried emigrants all the way to Oregon. If these peaceful journeys into the past help you relax at night, please subscribe to the Bedtime Historian. And while you are settling in, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is there. Now, lower the lights, adjust your pillow, pull the blankets around you, and let the sounds of the present begin to fade. Our journey begins in Missouri, where one family is preparing to leave everything familiar behind. The decision to leave home does not happen all at once. It begins quietly, perhaps with a letter unfolded beside the evening fire. The paper has traveled hundreds of miles from the Oregon country, carried east by ship, wagon, horseback, and mail coach. Its edges are soft from handling, and the writing is cramped because paper is expensive, and the person who wrote it had much to say. There is good soil in Oregon, the letter promises. There is land enough for anyone willing to work it. The winters are mild, the valleys green, and crops grow in abundance. A family might build a new life there, far from crowded towns, worn-out farmland, and debts that seem to follow from one year into the next. The letter has been read before. It may have been read many times. Still, tonight, your father reads it aloud once more. The rest of the family listens from around the small room. Your mother continues her sewing, though her hands have slowed. One of the younger children sits close to the fire, watching a thin line of smoke rise from the lamp. Outside, the wind moves through the bare branches of the trees surrounding the house. Oregon is more than 2,000 miles away. No one in the room has ever seen it. To reach it, you would have to cross open prairie, wide rivers, and mountain ranges whose names you know only from maps. You would have to leave behind nearly every person and place that has ever been familiar to you. And there is no certainty that the promises in the letter are true. Yet, the possibility remains. Land, a fresh beginning, a place where the future might be larger than the past. For many families in the 1840s, that possibility was enough to begin a conversation. Across farms and villages in the eastern and midwestern United States, people heard stories about the distant Oregon Territory. Some learned about it from newspapers. Others listened to traveling speakers who described the rich valleys beyond the Rocky Mountains. Guidebooks offered advice about routes, supplies, and the proper season for departure. The information was not always reliable. A writer who had never made the journey might describe the trail as easier than it was. A land promoter might speak at length about fertile soil, while saying very little about months of hunger, sickness, or exhaustion. Letters sent home by successful emigrants naturally spoke more often of arrival than of those who had turned back or died along the way. Even honest descriptions could not fully explain what the journey required. How could a letter describe the feeling of walking beside a wagon for 15 miles beneath a hot summer sun? How could a newspaper article capture the sound of a child coughing through the night in a camp far from any doctor? How could a guidebook prepare someone to watch a familiar home disappear behind a bend in the road? The Western journey was often presented as an adventure, but the people considering it were not characters in an adventure story. They were farmers, carpenters, shopkeepers, laborers, mothers, and children. They worried about money. They argued over decisions. They feared making the wrong choice. Some had already tried to build a stable life where they were and had failed. Farms might be divided among several sons until no one inherited enough land to support a family. A poor harvest could leave debts that took years to repay. In growing towns, work might be irregular, rents high, and opportunity limited. For these families, Oregon represented something increasingly difficult to find closer to home: space. The land policies of the period encouraged that hope. Reports suggested that married couples willing to settle and cultivate land in Oregon could obtain large claims. To a family accustomed to renting property or farming a small, exhausted plot, the idea was almost impossible to ignore. But not every emigrant was escaping poverty. Some families were relatively comfortable. They owned farms, livestock, and household goods. Their decision to leave was not forced by desperation, but inspired by ambition. They believed they could do better. They imagined larger farms, new communities, and futures for their children that might not be available where they lived. Others traveled for reasons that were more personal. A person in poor health might hope that a different climate would bring relief. A family might follow relatives who had already settled in the West. A minister might see Oregon as a place to establish a church. A merchant might picture a profitable shop in a growing town. And some simply felt restless. The United States was expanding rapidly, and stories of distant places filled the newspapers. Roads, canals, and steamboats were making movement feel possible in ways it had not for earlier generations. The West existed in the imagination as a place where an ordinary person might begin again. There were, of course, many reasons to stay. Your family has lived in this part of the country for years. Perhaps you know every curve of the nearby creek and every tree along the road leading into town. You know which house belongs to the widow who makes preserves each autumn, which farmer will lend a tool without asking when it will be returned, and which church pew your family occupies every Sunday morning. Your grandparents live only a few miles away. Your mother visits them regularly, carrying bread or a jar of something from the garden. Your youngest brother has never gone more than a week without seeing them. If the family leaves for Oregon, that will change. A letter might take months to arrive, assuming it arrives at all. News of a birth, illness, or death could reach you long after the event. Returning east would be difficult and expensive. Most people who started for Oregon understood that they might never see their old homes again. The decision therefore spreads beyond the people who intend to travel. When your father first mentions Oregon to his parents, they say very little. Your grandfather asks practical questions. How many animals will be needed? How much flour can the wagon hold? Who else is going? What does your father know about crossing the mountains? Your grandmother does not ask about the mountains. She looks toward the children. Perhaps she is trying to imagine them older. Perhaps she is wondering whether the smallest will remember her face. In the following weeks, the conversation continues. Sometimes Oregon seems certain. At other times, the idea is dismissed as foolish. Your mother worries about illness. Your father worries about money. Relatives bring newspaper clippings and warnings. A neighbor knows someone whose cousin supposedly made the journey and arrived safely. Another tells a story about a family that lost everything in a river crossing. The children listen from doorways. To them, Oregon begins as a word spoken by adults. Then it becomes a place on a map. The map lies across the table, held flat by a candle holder at one corner and a coffee cup at another. A finger traces the route west from Missouri, across the plains, along the Platte River, past forts and landmarks, through South Pass, beyond the Snake River, over the mountains. At the far edge of the map lies the Willamette Valley. The distance between Missouri and Oregon fits beneath the length of a hand. On the map, there is no dust, no swollen river, no broken wheel, no grave beside the trail. Only a line crossing an empty page. Eventually, a decision is made. Perhaps it happens after another difficult harvest. Perhaps a letter arrives from relatives already in Oregon. Perhaps a neighboring family announces that it will leave in the spring, making the journey feel less impossible. Whatever the reason, the conversation changes. The family no longer asks whether it will go. It begins asking when. Spring is the only practical answer. The wagon companies must leave after enough grass has grown to feed the animals, but early enough to cross the mountains before autumn snow. That means months of preparation and a departure that cannot be delayed for long. The household now becomes a place of lists: flour, bacon, coffee, sugar, tools, rope, blankets, medicine, spare wagon parts. Every item must be considered, purchased, or prepared. Money must be gathered. Animals must be chosen. A wagon must be found or built. And before any of that can happen, the family must begin letting go. The farm may be sold. So may the furniture, livestock, and tools that will not be taken west. Neighbors arrive to examine chairs, kettles, and farming equipment. Familiar objects are assigned prices and carried away. A chest that has stood beneath the bedroom window for years disappears into another family's wagon. A table around which countless meals have been eaten is purchased by a neighbor. The house slowly empties. The children find this exciting at first. Rooms sound different without furniture. There is space to run. Every day brings visitors and activity. For the adults, the emptiness carries a different meaning. Each object sold makes the decision more difficult to reverse. The family is dismantling one life before the next has begun. Your mother must decide which personal belongings can be carried. She lays clothing, quilts, books, and small keepsakes across the bed. Some items are practical. Others hold memories that cannot be replaced. A painted dish from her mother. A bundle of letters. A child's first pair of shoes. A family Bible with names written inside the cover. The wagon cannot carry everything. No matter how carefully it is packed, there will not be room. The journey west begins with choices like these, not on the trail, but inside familiar rooms, as ordinary people decide what parts of their old lives can travel with them. In the final days, relatives visit more often. Meals are shared. Advice is repeated. Promises are made to write from every fort and settlement where mail can be sent. No one says aloud how uncertain those promises are. On the last evening, your grandmother stays until the light outside begins to fade. She helps your mother fold a quilt and place it among the things that will go into the wagon. The two women speak quietly. Now and then, one of them stops, as though the next words are too difficult to say. When it is time to leave, everyone steps outside. The air is cool. The road leading away from the house is pale beneath the rising moon. Your grandmother embraces each child carefully, lingering with the youngest. Your grandfather shakes your father's hand and then pulls him close. Tomorrow morning, the wagon will begin moving west. There will be excitement at first. Neighbors will wave. Children may run beside the wheels. The animals will be rested, the wagon newly packed and the road familiar. But within a few hours, the last recognizable buildings will disappear. The land ahead will be unknown. And behind the wagon, every slow turn of the wheels will carry the family farther from the people standing beside the road. For now, however, the journey has not yet begun. The wagon waits in the darkness. Inside the house, the remaining possessions are gathered near the door. And for one final night, everyone sleeps beneath the roof they have always called home. Morning arrives before anyone is ready. The house is still dark when the first movement begins. A chair scrapes softly across the floor. Someone lifts the iron latch on the front door. Cold air enters the room, carrying the smell of damp earth, wood smoke, and the animals waiting outside. No one has slept very well. For weeks, the wagon has stood near the house as a promise and a warning. Its wheels have been inspected, its axles greased, and its wooden bed covered by a frame of curved bows. Heavy canvas has been stretched across those bows and tied securely along the sides. From a distance, the white covering resembles the sail of a small ship. That is why emigrant wagons are sometimes called prairie schooners. They appear to float across the grasslands, their canvas tops rising above the horizon like pale sails at sea. Up close, however, the wagon is not graceful. It is a heavy wooden box mounted on 4 wheels. It creaks when someone steps inside. The canvas smells of new cloth, dust, and linseed oil. The iron rims around the wheels are cold beneath your hand. The wagon is smaller than it seemed when the family first decided to go west. For months, Oregon has felt enormous. It has filled conversations, letters, maps, and dreams. Now the future has been reduced to a space only a few feet wide. Everything needed for the journey must fit inside it. Food for several months, tools for repairing the wagon, clothing for heat, rain, and mountain cold, blankets and bedding, cooking pots, water containers, medicine, weapons, spare parts, and the few personal objects that will make a strange place feel something like home. The larger freight wagons used by merchants can carry immense loads. Some are pulled by long teams of animals and built for transporting goods between settlements. Your family's wagon is lighter. It must travel nearly 2,000 miles across ground that will not always deserve to be called a road. It will cross mud, sand, rock, and steep mountain slopes. Every unnecessary pound will have to be pulled by the animals, mile after mile. At first, that seems like a simple problem. You will take only what is necessary. But necessity changes when each object is placed beside the wagon. Your father has made lists. He has copied suggested supplies from guidebooks and compared them with the advice of neighbors. He has spoken to merchants who sell equipment to emigrants and listened carefully to anyone claiming experience with Western travel. the recommendations vary. Some insist that a family must carry enough food for 6 months. Others say that game can be hunted along the way. One guide recommends particular medicines. Another warns that half the objects emigrants purchase will be abandoned before they reach the mountains. Everyone agrees on one thing: the wagon must not be overloaded. And yet, almost immediately, it is. The heaviest supplies go in first. Sacks of flour are laid across the wagon bed, positioned low so the weight will remain balanced. Flour will become bread, biscuits, dumplings, and thickener for simple meals. It is one of the most important provisions the family carries. Beside it are sacks of cornmeal, rice, and beans. There are barrels of bacon or salt pork, carefully packed to last without refrigeration. Smaller containers hold coffee, sugar, salt, and perhaps a little tea. Dried apples, peaches, or berries offer rare sweetness and variety. The food is plain because it must survive. Fresh meat will spoil. Milk will be available only while cattle continue to produce it. Vegetables will not remain fresh for long. The family can hunt and gather along the way, but no one can depend on finding enough food in unfamiliar country. Hundreds of other travelers will be moving along the same route, often hunting the same animals and gathering from the same limited places. The wagon must carry the family through days when nothing can be found. A wooden box holds cooking tools. There is a cast iron skillet, a coffee pot, tin plates, cups, knives, and spoons. A heavy kettle can be suspended above a fire. A Dutch oven may be used to bake bread beneath hot coals. Each item is familiar. Each one also has weight. The cast iron skillet has been used nearly every day for years. Your mother can judge its heat by the sound butter makes when it touches the surface. She knows how long biscuits require and how to move the pan closer to or farther from the fire. Leaving it behind would save several pounds. Taking it means carrying a small piece of the family's old kitchen all the way to Oregon. The skillet goes into the wagon. Tools are packed next. An axe will be needed for cutting wood and clearing obstacles. A shovel may help free a wheel from mud or dig a fire pit. A hammer, auger, saw, and small assortment of nails can repair the wagon or build a shelter. There is rope, chain, and extra leather for harnesses. Spare bolts and pieces of iron are wrapped to keep them together. Extra spokes may be tied along the side of the wagon. Grease for the axles is stored where it can be reached easily. A broken wagon cannot simply be left at a repair shop. On the trail, every family becomes responsible for its own moving machinery. A loose wheel must be noticed before it fails. A cracked tongue must be braced. A torn harness must be stitched. A missing bolt may have to be replaced with whatever can be shaped to fit. The wagon is not only transportation. It is pantry, workshop, bedroom, storage room, and sometimes shelter. Its condition will shape nearly every day of the journey. Bedding is rolled tightly. Blankets, quilts, and feather beds take up more space than anyone expected. Some will be laid across the supplies to create a narrow resting place for a sick child or exhausted adult. Most of the family will not ride inside the wagon. It is too full, and the animals have enough weight to pull. The image of emigrants sitting comfortably beneath the canvas while the wagon carries them west is misleading. Most will spend long days walking beside it. They will ride only when illness, injury, age, or exhaustion makes walking impossible. The wagon is not a carriage, it is a moving storeroom. Clothing is packed into chests or wrapped bundles. Each person has only a few changes. Shirts, dresses, trousers, stockings, underclothes, coats, and sturdy shoes must serve across changing seasons. The family will leave in spring, cross hot plains in summer, and perhaps reach the mountains as autumn approaches. Clothing that feels unnecessary in Missouri may become essential later. Shoes are particularly important. Everyone will walk hundreds of miles. Soles will wear thin. Leather will split. Feet will blister and swell. Extra shoes are packed, although they are heavy. So are needles, thread, buttons, and scraps of cloth for repairs. Nothing worn on the trail can be treated as disposable. A torn sleeve will be patched. A worn stocking will be darned. A damaged shoe may be repaired again and again until there is little left of the original leather. Medicine occupies a smaller space than fear would prefer. There are bandages, salves, and bottles of remedies trusted by the family. Some may help. Others may do very little. A traveler might carry quinine for fever, laudanum for pain, castor oil, peppermint, or other familiar household treatments. Medical knowledge is limited, and many illnesses that will appear along the trail are not fully understood. Still, packing medicine offers comfort. It creates the feeling that danger can be prepared for. A wooden box contains a few firearms and ammunition. They may be used for hunting or protection. They are also dangerous objects in a crowded camp filled with children, animals, and exhausted adults. Accidental gunshots are a genuine risk. A loaded weapon can fall from a wagon. A careless hunter can fire without seeing who stands beyond the target. Children accustomed to handling guns may still make mistakes. The weapons are wrapped and placed where they can be reached, but not where the smallest hands can find them. Water is another problem. It cannot all be carried. Barrels and containers are secured to the wagon, but water is extremely heavy. The family must depend on rivers, streams, springs, and wells along the route. That dependence will influence every day's travel. A campsite without good water is dangerous. A dry stretch may force the wagon company to travel farther than planned. Muddy or contaminated water may be the only water available. For now, however, the barrels are clean and full. Their wooden sides are damp. The iron hoops are tight. Water moves inside them with a low, heavy sound whenever the wagon shifts. By mid-morning, the practical supplies have filled most of the space. Now come the personal belongings. These are more difficult. A family Bible is wrapped in cloth and placed inside a chest. Its pages contain handwritten names, births, marriages, and deaths. It is part religious book, part family record, and part connection to people who will remain behind. It will go to Oregon. So will a few letters tied with ribbon, a small sewing box, a framed likeness, perhaps one favorite book. The objects are not useful in the same way as flour or rope, but they carry a different kind of necessity. They remind the family who they were before they began moving west. Your mother brings out a painted dish that belonged to her mother. It is not valuable. There is a small chip near the rim, and the flowers painted around its edge have faded. It would be easy to replace with a plain tin plate. But a new plate in Oregon would not be this plate. She wraps it carefully in a piece of cloth. Your father looks at the space remaining in the wagon. He says nothing. The dish is placed inside. A wooden rocking chair waits near the doorway. For several days, your mother has argued that it should come. She imagines it near the hearth of a future house. She sees herself sitting in it after the long journey, perhaps holding another child, or sewing beside an Oregon window. The chair belonged to her family. It has crossed smaller distances before, but it is large, awkward, and heavier than it looks. Your father turns it sideways and attempts to fit it among the supplies. One rocker catches against a barrel. The back presses into the canvas. It blocks access to the food and leaves no place for bedding. For a moment, no one speaks. Then the chair is lifted out again. It remains in the yard. A neighbor may take it. Perhaps a relative will keep it. Perhaps it will stand in another house for many years. Your mother runs her hand across the smooth wooden arm before turning away. This is how many possessions are left behind. Not with grand speeches, but with a final touch and the knowledge that there is no room. The children make their own choices. One wants to bring a wooden toy wagon. Another has a collection of stones gathered from the creek. A younger child carries a doll made from cloth and yarn. Its face is stitched simply, and one arm has already been repaired. The stones are too heavy. Most are returned to the ground. The toy wagon is small enough to tie beneath a bench. The doll goes inside a blanket roll. Everyone is permitted something unnecessary. A journey of this length requires not only food and tools, but reminders that life contains more than survival. By afternoon, the wagon seems full. Your father stands back and studies it. The canvas rises above the load, but not by much. Bags and bundles are tied beneath the wagon or secured along its sides. Tools hang where they can be reached. Water barrels are fastened tightly. The rear wheels appear pressed deep into the soil. The animals have not yet been hitched, but already the wagon looks too heavy. A neighbor who has come to help walks around it slowly. He places one hand against the wagon bed and looks toward your father. "You will leave half of it beside the road," he says. There is no cruelty in his voice. He has simply seen other families depart. Emigrants often begin the journey carrying furniture, trunks, stoves, books, and household treasures they cannot imagine living without. Within days or weeks, as animals tire and roads worsen, many of those belongings are abandoned. The trail west becomes lined with objects once considered essential. Chairs, tables, tools, clothing, books, feather beds, pieces of family history left in the grass because the animals can pull them no farther. Your father removes another box. Inside are several books, papers, and tools that might be useful in Oregon, but are not necessary for reaching it. He opens the box and begins sorting. One book goes back into the wagon. The others remain behind. A second chest is emptied. Clothing is repacked into smaller bundles. Duplicate pans are removed. A heavy iron tool is traded for a lighter one. A sack of personal belongings is divided between family members. Slowly, the load becomes more reasonable. It is still heavy. It will always be heavy. But the wagon now contains what the family believes it needs, along with what their hearts will not allow them to abandon. The animals are brought forward near sunset. Many emigrants prefer oxen. They are slower than horses and less elegant than mules, but they are strong, patient, and able to live on prairie grass. They are generally less expensive than horses and less likely to be stolen. When treated well, they can pull steadily for long hours. The family's oxen are large, quiet animals with broad foreheads and dark eyes. A wooden yoke rests across their necks, holding each pair together. They do not know that Oregon exists. They know only the pressure of the yoke, the voice of the driver, and the familiar commands that tell them when to stop or move. The wagon tongue is connected. Leather creaks. Chains tighten. The oxen lean forward. For the first time, the wagon begins to move under its full load. The wheels resist. Then one turns. The others follow. The iron rims press into the earth, leaving deep marks in the yard. Everyone watches. The wagon travels only a short distance before your father stops the team. He checks the balance and walks around each wheel. One side appears too low, so several sacks are shifted. The test is repeated. This time, the wagon rolls more evenly. Still, every sound seems important. A creak might be ordinary. A scrape might indicate a problem. A sudden crack could mean that something has already failed. The family will soon learn the voice of the wagon. They will recognize the normal groan of wood, the rhythm of the wheels, and the faint rattle of tin cups tied together inside. They will learn which sounds can be ignored and which require everyone to stop. Tonight, those sounds are unfamiliar. The wagon is returned to its place near the house. The oxen are released, watered, and fed. One final inspection begins. Ropes are tightened. Canvas ties are checked. A barrel is moved away from a sharp edge that might wear through the wood. A bundle is wrapped again to protect it from rain. Your mother climbs into the wagon and looks around. The interior is dim beneath the canvas. There is barely room to sit upright between the stacked supplies. The air smells of flour, leather, wood, cloth, and bacon. Tin cups hang from a peg. A lantern is secured nearby. The family Bible rests inside a chest. The painted dish lies wrapped between two blankets. Somewhere beneath the bedding is the child's cloth doll. Everything the family expects to need for a new life has been arranged within reach. Outside, the empty house waits. The difference between the two spaces is striking. The house contains room, but almost nothing else. The wagon contains everything, but almost no room. For one last evening, the family moves between them. A few blankets remain inside for the night. A pot is kept out for breakfast. Clothing for the morning hangs near the door. By sunrise, those final objects will be packed as well. The wagon will join the road leading west. At first, it will travel through country the family knows. Familiar farms will pass slowly. Neighbors may walk beside the team for a mile or two. Children will turn to look back. But beyond the settlements, other wagons are gathering. Families from different towns and states are preparing the same loads, making the same difficult choices, and leaving similar objects behind. They will meet near the Missouri frontier. There, one family's journey will become part of something larger, a wagon company, a moving community of strangers who must learn to travel, camp, argue, repair, endure, and survive together. For now, the road is quiet. The wagon rests beneath the night sky, its white canvas pale in the moonlight. Inside it are months of food, a handful of tools, several folded quilts, and the carefully chosen pieces of one family's life. By this time tomorrow, every object inside will be moving west. By the time the family reaches the western edge of Missouri, the road has begun to change. At first, the wagon passes through country that still feels familiar. There are fenced fields, barns weathered silver by the seasons, and houses set back from the road beneath budding trees. Neighbors appear at gates to watch the loaded wagon move past. Some raise a hand in farewell. Others simply stand and look. For the first few miles, the children turn often. They watch the roof of their old house disappear behind the trees. They search for familiar landmarks: a hill, a church steeple, the bend in the creek, until each one is lost from sight. Eventually, there is nothing left to recognize. The family continues west. They are not yet on the Oregon Trail in the way they have imagined it. They have not reached the broad plains or the distant mountains. The road is still lined with farms and settlements, and the wagon still stops near towns where food, tools, and advice can be purchased. Yet something has already shifted. The house is behind them. The wagon now carries everything. And each evening, when the family spreads its bedding beneath the canvas or beside a small fire, there is no familiar room waiting beyond the darkness. Other emigrants begin to appear along the road. Some travel in single wagons. Others move in groups of 3 or 4. A few have horses tied behind them, while others drive cattle ahead of the team. There are wagons that look carefully balanced and newly repaired, and wagons already leaning beneath loads that seem far too heavy. Every family carries its own version of the future. One wagon has a spinning wheel tied to the back. Another carries a wooden cradle. A cage containing chickens swings beneath a wagon bed, while a dog trots patiently in the dust beside the wheels. The travelers greet one another as they pass. "Are you bound for Oregon?" The question becomes a kind of introduction. Names come later. So do hometowns, occupations, and family connections. At first, what matters is the direction. Some are going to California. Others intend to stop in Oregon. A few have not decided exactly where they will settle, only that they will continue west until they find a place that seems right. Their routes will overlap for much of the journey. For now, they are all moving toward the Missouri frontier. Near Independence, Westport, St. Joseph, and other jumping-off places, the number of wagons increases. Fields near the settlements become temporary camps. Canvas covers rise above the grass. Animals graze wherever space can be found. Smoke from dozens of cooking fires drifts through the evening air. To a child, the gathering may resemble a fair. There are people everywhere. Men examine oxen and argue over prices. Merchants advertise flour, coffee, rope, medicine, and spare wagon parts. Blacksmiths repair wheels and fit iron shoes. Families exchange news beside open fires, while children move from camp to camp, already making friends they may know for only a few days, or perhaps for the entire journey. The air is filled with sound. Axes strike wood. Cattle call from temporary pens. Iron rings against iron from the blacksmith's shop. Someone shouts for a missing child. A dog barks at a mule. Wagon wheels groan as another family arrives, carrying more furniture than the animals should be asked to pull. The scene is crowded, restless, and full of expectation. But the wagons do not immediately leave. The emigrants are waiting for the prairie. A journey west depends on more than a family's readiness. The animals must have grass to eat, and that grass must be tall enough to support thousands of oxen, cattle, horses, and mules moving along the same corridor. Depart too early, and the plains may still be brown from winter. The animals will weaken before the journey has properly begun. Depart too late, and autumn snow may arrive before the wagons have crossed the final mountains. Between those risks lies a narrow season. For days, perhaps weeks, the families wait. They watch the weather. They speak with travelers arriving from farther west. They study the color of the grass and ask experienced men whether it is high enough. The waiting is difficult because everyone feels that the journey has already begun. The old home has been sold or left behind. The wagon is packed. Farewells have been spoken. Still, the trail asks them to remain in place. The delay gives the family time to discover that something is already wrong with one of the wagon wheels. At first, it is only a faint wobble. Your father notices it while moving the wagon a short distance across the camp. He stops the oxen, kneels beside the rear wheel, and turns it slowly with both hands. The children gather nearby. One expects to see a dramatic crack. There is none. The wheel appears solid, but the iron tire has loosened slightly from the wooden rim. The wagon is taken to a blacksmith. There, the wheel is removed and the iron tire heated. The smell of coal smoke and hot metal hangs in the air. When the tire is replaced and cooled, it contracts tightly around the wood. The repair is simple. It is also a reminder. The family has traveled only a short distance, and already the wagon requires attention. Across the plains, there will be no shop conveniently waiting beside every loose wheel. Your father watches the blacksmith work and asks questions. How can he tell when a tire is becoming loose? What should he do if the wood dries and shrinks? How much axle grease should be used? The blacksmith answers patiently. He has heard these questions many times. Nearby, another man is less fortunate. A wagon tongue has split under the weight of an overloaded bed. Several crates and a small stove have been removed and placed in the grass, while he considers how much must be sold or abandoned before the journey begins. The sight causes your father to glance back toward his own wagon. For the rest of the afternoon, he checks the ropes, wheels, and harnesses again. Preparation becomes a kind of comfort. Every tightened knot suggests that uncertainty can be reduced. Every repaired part makes Oregon feel a little closer. No family intends to cross the continent alone. A wagon may carry its own supplies, but survival often depends on other people. Animals wander. Wheels break. Rivers rise. Illness can leave an entire household unable to manage its team. The emigrants therefore begin forming companies. Some families have planned to travel together since leaving home. They are relatives, neighbors, or members of the same church. Others arrived alone and now study the nearby camps, trying to decide whom they can trust. A wagon company is not a military unit, although it may borrow some military habits. It is a temporary community created by necessity. The travelers must agree on when to leave, how quickly to move, where to camp, and what to do when someone falls behind. They may establish rules for livestock, hunting, guard duty, and river crossings. They must also choose a leader. One evening, several families gather near a large fire to discuss forming a company. The meeting begins politely. Men sit on overturned buckets, wagon tongues, and folded blankets. Women stand nearby or continue preparing supper while listening. Children are instructed to remain quiet, though they drift closer whenever voices rise. A man named Mr. Bennett speaks first. He is in his late 40s, broad-shouldered and sun-browned, with experience driving freight wagons between Missouri settlements. He has never traveled to Oregon, but he understands animals and roads. Several people believe he should serve as captain. The title sounds grander than the position feels. A wagon captain cannot simply order families to obey. Each household owns its wagon, animals, and supplies. If a decision becomes unpopular, people may ignore it, elect someone else, or leave the company altogether. The captain's authority rests largely on trust. Mr. Bennett does not campaign for the role. He explains that the company must rise early, keep a steady pace, and avoid unnecessary delays. He believes wagons should remain close enough to assist one another, but spread out when dust becomes too heavy. He also says that no family should expect the entire company to stop for a minor disagreement or an object that could have been left behind. At this, several people look toward the overloaded wagon near the edge of camp. Its owner looks into the fire. Another man, younger and more talkative, argues that the company should move faster. He has heard that a strong team can cover 20 miles in a day. At that pace, he says, they might reach Oregon before the worst summer heat. Mr. Bennett listens before responding. A single wagon on good ground might travel quickly for a time. A company containing children, cattle, elderly travelers, and heavily loaded wagons will move at the pace of its slowest necessary task. Animals must graze. Wheels must be repaired. Rivers do not become shallower because someone is in a hurry. The younger man does not appear convinced, but he says no more. A vote is taken. Mr. Bennett is chosen captain. Other responsibilities are assigned. One man will help select campsites. Another has experience with livestock and agrees to oversee the rotation of night guards. A farmer who owns a small medical guide and several bottles of medicine becomes known, somewhat generously, as the company doctor. His name is Mr. Hale. He is careful to tell people that he has never attended medical school. This does little to change the way they look at him whenever someone begins coughing. The company also includes Mrs. Turner, a widow traveling with her brother's family. Her husband died the previous winter, after the wagon had already been purchased. Relatives urged her to remain behind. She chose to go. Her 2 sons are old enough to help drive cattle, and her daughter carries a small notebook in which she intends to record the journey. The girl's name is Sarah. She and your oldest sister sit together near the edge of the fire while the adults debate rules. Sarah opens the notebook and shows the first page. She has written the date, the location, and the number of wagons expected to travel with the company. Beneath that, she has added one sentence. The grass is nearly ready. The entry feels important because it is written down. Years from now, Sarah may forget the sound of Mr. Bennett's voice or the exact shape of the camp. The notebook will remember for her. The company eventually agrees on a basic set of expectations. Wagons will begin preparing before sunrise. Families must be ready when the signal to depart is given. Loose cattle will be driven in a separate group so they do not crowd the wagons. Fires must be extinguished before leaving camp. Hunters may not wander so far that the company must wait for them. At night, each household will provide someone for guard duty, according to a rotating schedule. The rules seem sensible. They will also be broken. Even before departure, small disagreements begin. One family believes its wagon should remain near the front because the mother is expecting a child. Another wants a place in the rear to avoid dust. Someone objects to the number of dogs traveling with the company. A farmer complains that another family's cattle have wandered too close to his animals. These are minor problems. On the trail, minor problems fill much of the day. A community formed from strangers does not become harmonious merely because everyone is moving in the same direction. The travelers have different habits, beliefs, and ideas about responsibility. Some are careful with fire, others are careless. Some share food freely, others count every pound of flour. A few treat the captain's decisions as final. Others question nearly every instruction. The company must learn which disagreements matter and which can be allowed to fade into the dust behind them. One afternoon, a child from another wagon approaches while your mother is mending a shirt. He is perhaps 6 years old, with untied shoes and a solemn expression. He asks whether she has seen a red cup. The cup belongs to his younger sister. It was hanging from the side of their wagon, and now it is gone. Your mother has not seen it. Still, she puts down her sewing and helps him search. They look beneath wagons, beside fire rings, and near the place where the cattle were watered. Eventually, the cup is found in the grass, dented where someone stepped on it. The child carries it back as though it were something precious. In a camp filled with hundreds of people preparing for a continental journey, the loss of one tin cup should be insignificant. To the child, it is not. The search takes less than 10 minutes, but it teaches something about the company before the wagons have traveled a single trail mile. The journey will be made from moments like this. Someone notices what another person has lost. Someone holds an animal while a harness is repaired. Someone watches a sleeping child while a parent cooks. Someone shares a tool, a cup of coffee, or a warning about the road ahead. The company's strength will not come only from rules and leadership. Much of it will grow quietly from small acts that no guidebook thinks to mention. As the grass rises, the camp begins to thin. One wagon company departs before dawn, its canvas tops pale against the dark horizon. Another leaves the following morning. Each departure draws observers. Families stand beside their own wagons and watch the line move west. The sound lasts long after the wagons have disappeared. Wheels turning, chains rattling, drivers calling to oxen. Those who remain begin to feel late. Mr. Bennett resists the pressure. He walks beyond camp each morning and studies the grass. He speaks with men who have brought cattle from farther west. He checks the weather and watches the sky. 2 more days, he says. The younger man who wanted to travel 20 miles a day shakes his head, but does not argue. During those final days, families make their last purchases. A little more flour, another length of rope, a spare ox shoe, needles, coffee. One family discovers that its water barrel leaks and replaces it. Another trades a nervous horse for 2 slower oxen. Letters are written home. Your mother sits beside the wagon with paper resting on a wooden box. She describes the crowded camp and the company they have joined. She says the children are well. She does not mention how often she thinks of the empty house. The letter ends with a promise to write again from Fort Laramie. It is folded carefully and given to someone traveling east. The next morning, Mr. Bennett announces that the company will leave at first light. The camp changes immediately. Loose objects are packed. Animals are gathered. Meals are prepared with unusual efficiency. Children are reminded not to wander. Everyone checks the sky, though the weather has not changed. That evening, the company's fires burn in a loose circle across the grass. There is no formal celebration. Most people are too busy or too tired. Yet conversations continue later than usual. People speak about the road ahead. They mention rivers, forts, and landmarks they have never seen. Someone has heard that Chimney Rock can be spotted from many miles away. Another claims that buffalo herds sometimes cover the plains from one horizon to the other. Mr. Hale tells a story about a man who crossed South Pass years earlier and barely noticed he had reached the Continental Divide. The children listen until their eyes begin to close. One by one, the fires are covered. Voices fade. Animals shift in the darkness beyond the wagons. Inside the family's canvas shelter, clothing for mourning lies within reach. Breakfast supplies have been set aside. The wagon is packed so that nothing important will need to be rearranged before departure. Sleep comes slowly. Somewhere in the camp, an infant cries and is soothed. A guard walks past carrying a lantern. The light moves briefly across the canvas, then disappears. Before sunrise, the company begins to wake. Fires glow again. Oxen are brought in from grazing. Yokes settle across broad necks. Ropes tighten. Bedding is rolled and stored. Mr. Bennett rides along the line, checking that each family is ready. The sky in the east grows pale. At last, the signal is given. The first team leans into its yoke. A wagon wheel turns, then another. Across the camp, families begin moving almost together, awkwardly at first, each driver trying to find the proper distance from the wagon ahead. The line stretches across the grass. Your family's wagon joins it. Behind you, the Missouri camp remains scattered with cold fire rings, trampled ground, and the marks where wagons stood during the long wait. Ahead, the trail is little more than parallel tracks, leading toward the open prairie. Sarah walks nearby with her notebook tucked safely inside her dress pocket. Later, when the company stops, she will record the day's distance. For now, there is only the movement of animals, the low creak of wood, and the steady rhythm of many wheels beginning the same long journey. The strangers from the fire are strangers still. They do not yet know which families will become friends, which disagreements will divide them, or which wagons will remain together all the way to Oregon. But on this morning, they leave as one company. The sun rises behind them, and slowly, wagon by wagon, the last edge of settlement begins to fall away. The first call comes while the stars are still visible. It passes quietly through the camp at first, a voice near the lead wagons, then another farther down the line. Someone strikes flint against steel. A small flame takes hold beneath a kettle. Canvas shifts as people wake inside and beside the wagons. For a moment, no one moves quickly. The air is cold enough that breath shows faintly in the darkness. Blankets are warm. The ground beneath them is hard. Then an ox bell sounds beyond the camp. Another answers from farther out on the prairie. The day has begun. Your father sits up, pulls on his boots, and reaches for the coat folded beneath his head. He slept beside the wagon, close enough to hear if the animals returned, or someone called for help during the night. Your mother is already awake. She lifts the edge of the wagon canvas and looks toward the eastern sky. There is only the thinnest line of gray above the grass. The children are told to rise. The youngest turns deeper into a quilt and pretends not to hear. There will be no sleeping late on the trail. The company must use the cool hours of morning while the animals are rested and the ground is firm. By midday, the sun may be high, the dust heavy, and the teams slow. A hand settles gently on the child's shoulder. Up now. The quilt moves. One small foot appears, followed by the other. Across the camp, the same reluctant waking takes place beneath dozens of canvas covers. Families stretch aching legs, search for missing shoes, and brush grass or dust from their clothing. The first task is finding the animals. During the night, the oxen and cattle have grazed beyond the wagons. Some wear bells so they can be located in the darkness. Others remain near the herd because they are accustomed to following familiar animals. The men assigned to the early watch have kept them from wandering too far, but the prairie has no fences. A team may drift toward better grass, cross a shallow stream, or follow another group of cattle. Lanterns move through the darkness. Your father and oldest brother walk toward the sound of the bells. The grass is wet around their boots. Somewhere nearby, an animal tears at the ground with the slow, steady sound of grazing. They find one pair of oxen easily. The second pair is farther away. A dark shape appears against the paling sky, broad and still, then turns its head as they approach. The animals know the morning routine. They are reluctant to leave the grass, but they do not resist for long. By the time the teams are led back toward the wagons, the camp has begun to glow. Small cooking fires burn in shallow pits. Sparks rise and disappear. Coffee pots sit above coals. Someone kneads dough on the lid of a wooden box. The smell of bacon drifts between the wagons and mixes with smoke, damp grass, animals, and leather. Breakfast is simple. Your mother slices salt pork into a pan while your sister mixes cornmeal with water. The meal must be prepared quickly, but nothing on the trail happens without work. Water must be carried. The fire must be coaxed from yesterday's coals or built again. Food must be taken from the wagon, cooked, served, and packed away before the company leaves. The family eats from tin plates while sitting on blankets and overturned buckets. The youngest child is still half asleep, holding a biscuit in both hands. No one talks much. There will be time for conversation while walking. For now, everyone watches the sky. Its color changes slowly from gray to pale rose. The eastern edge of the prairie brightens, revealing wagons that seem to disappear during the night. Mr. Bennett rides along the line. He does not call for anyone to hurry. He only looks. A family that has not begun breakfast receives a quiet reminder. A man still searching for his cattle is told that two boys saw them near the creek. Near the rear of the company, someone has discovered a broken strap and is already working by lantern light. Every delay belongs to everyone. If one wagon is not ready, it may be left to catch up. If several are unprepared, the entire company loses the coolest part of the morning. The rules agreed upon near independence now become the shape of daily life. Bedding is rolled tightly and returned to the wagon. The family's quilts are shaken free of grass and dust, then folded into bundles. Tin cups are tied together. Cooking tools are wiped clean enough for travel. The coffee grounds are thrown onto the fire. Your mother checks the ground before leaving it. A spoon was lost 2 days ago when someone packed too quickly. It was found only because the morning sun caught the metal. Nothing useful can be casually replaced. Your sister reaches beneath a blanket and finds one of the youngest child's shoes. The other is missing. For several minutes, the family searches around the wagon. The child insists both shoes were placed together. They look beneath the bedding, beside the fire, and inside the wagon. The company is nearly ready. Voices carry from the front. At last, Sarah appears holding the shoe. She found it near the Turner wagon, where the children had been sitting the night before. A small clump of grass remains caught in the laces. Your mother takes it with a relieved smile. Sarah waits while the shoe is pulled onto the child's foot. Then she returns to her own wagon without saying much. The lost shoe has delayed no one. Within minutes, the final pots are packed and the fire covered with earth. The oxen stand beside the wagon. The wooden yoke is lifted across their necks and fastened beneath them. Leather straps are checked. Chains are connected. The wagon tongue settles into place. The animals lower their heads slightly beneath the weight. A few wagons have already begun moving toward the trail. The first wheels turn through grass wet with morning dew. Mr. Bennett gives the signal. One by one, the teams lean forward. The family's wagon shudders before it moves. The iron-rimmed wheels hold for a moment in the soft ground, then roll. Breakfast camp begins to recede. Only dark circles remain where the fires burned. Flattened grass marks the places where people slept. Within an hour, another wagon company may pass through and know that travelers were there. By mid-morning, the line has settled into its usual shape. The wagons do not remain close together. When the ground is dry, each set of wheels lifts dust into the air. Families leave space so they are not forced to breathe what the wagon ahead has stirred from the trail. The result is a line that sometimes stretches for more than a mile. From the front, the last wagons appear small and pale against the prairie. From the rear, the leaders seem to move toward a horizon that never comes closer. Most people walk. The wagon is too heavily loaded for unnecessary passengers. Children may ride for a short time. Someone who is ill or injured will be given space among the supplies. Everyone else travels on foot beside the animals. At first, walking feels easier than expected. The morning is cool. The ground is level. Birds rise from the grass as the company approaches. Conversation moves along the line. Two men discuss the condition of the trail. Women compare the prices they paid for flour. Children find sticks, feathers, and oddly shaped stones, most of which they are told cannot be carried. Sarah walks beside your sister. Her notebook remains tucked safely away during the morning. She has learned that writing while walking leads to uneven lines and nearly caused her to stumble into a wheel rut. Instead, she remembers details to record later. The number of wagons seen in another company, the shape of a cloud, a broken cup beside the trail, a patch of wildflowers. The distances recorded in emigrant diaries can seem precise when read years later. 12 miles, 15 miles, 18 on an unusually good day. Living those miles feels different. Each one is made from thousands of steps. The same canvas cover remains just ahead. The same wheels turn. The same animals move with the slow rhythm of creatures saving their strength. The prairie appears open and nearly empty, yet it changes in small ways. The grass grows taller near water. The ground rises gradually, then falls. A line of trees in the distance reveals a creek before anyone can see the water itself. Wagon tracks divide, join, and divide again as travelers search for firmer ground. The trail is often less a single road than a broad corridor of parallel ruts. When one track becomes too muddy or deeply worn, the next wagon moves beside it. Over time, the passage of thousands of animals and wheels spreads across the land. The family learns to read the surface. Dark ground may be soft. A pale stretch may be dusty but firm. Grass growing between tracks can hide a hole. Every wagon ahead leaves information for the ones behind. Near the front of the company, a wheel drops suddenly into a rut. The wagon tilts. The driver calls to the team, and the oxen stop. Nothing has broken, but the right rear wheel sits lower than the others. Several men gather. A shovel appears. Loose earth is moved away from the wheel. Mr. Bennett studies the angle, then asks for another team. A chain is attached. The second pair of oxen is brought forward and yoked alongside the first. At the driver's command, both teams pull. The wheel rises slowly from the hole. The wagon lurches onto firm ground. Someone checks the axle. Another examines the spokes. Within 10 minutes, the line begins moving again. The repair leaves no lasting mark on the day, except for a short entry Sarah will make that evening. Mr. Collins's wagon was caught in a rut, but no harm was done. Most difficulties on the trail are like this: brief interruptions, a loose strap, a missing animal, a wheel that requires grease, a child with a blister. Each problem is small until several arrive at once. The company's pace remains steady. Around them, the morning warms. Coats are removed and tied to wagons. Sleeves are rolled. The dampness disappears from the grass. Dust begins to rise. It settles first on shoes and trouser cuffs, then works its way higher. It clings to skin made damp by walking. It enters mouths when people speak, and grits softly between teeth. A cloth tied over the lower face helps a little. Nothing keeps it out entirely. The white wagon covers gradually take on the color of the road. By late morning, the oxen have lost their early willingness. Their heads hang lower. Their steps remain even, but slower. Mr. Bennett rides back along the company and looks for water. A creek lies ahead, marked by cottonwoods. The wagons leave the main tracks and spread across the nearby grass. It is time for nooning. The midday stop is not a full camp. There are no tents to raise and no reason to unpack more than necessary. The animals need rest, water, and time to graze. The travelers need food and a chance to sit. The teams are unyoked. Oxen lower their heads to drink, crowding the bank until they are moved apart. Cattle wander toward the grass. Children are warned not to enter the water where the mud is deep. Lunch is usually cold. There may be bread left from breakfast, slices of bacon, cheese while it lasts, or dried fruit. On some days, a small fire is made for coffee. On others, no one wants to spend the time. Your family sits beneath the narrow shade cast by the wagon. The youngest child removes both shoes. One heel is red and tender. Your mother examines it, cleans away the dust, and wraps the sore place with a strip of cloth. The child watches with serious attention, as though observing a complicated medical procedure. Mr. Hale passes and pauses. He looks at the blister, nods at the wrapping, and advises a short ride in the wagon during the afternoon. No medicine is required. The child appears faintly disappointed by this. Nearby, Mrs. Turner is washing a cup at the creek. Her sons have taken the cattle farther out to graze. Sarah sits with the notebook open across her knees. She writes slowly. The letters must fit inside a book that has only so many pages, and Oregon is still far away. Your sister asks what she is recording. Sarah reads the entry aloud. We rose before daylight and traveled until the sun was high. The morning was fair. One wagon was delayed. A shoe was lost and found. She stops there. The child whose shoe was missing hears this and smiles. For one moment, the event has become part of the written history of the journey. Then Sarah closes the notebook to protect it from dust. The rest period passes quickly. Animals never seem to graze long enough. People never sit long enough. Someone gives the call to prepare. Water containers are refilled. A few damp cloths are hung from wagon sides. The blistered child is lifted into a narrow place among the bedding. The oxen are brought back and yoked. When the wagons start again, the afternoon feels heavier than the morning. The sun stands high over the trail. Shadows gather directly beneath the wagons. Metal fittings become hot to the touch. Conversation fades. People walk at whatever pace requires the least thought. The wheels produce a steady pattern of creaks and low groans. Harness leather shifts. Chains tap gently against wood. Hours begin to lose their edges. The prairie passes in grass, sky, and dust. A meadowlark calls from a fence post that marks no nearby farm. Insects move above the weeds. Far away, a dark line may be trees or another wagon company. The child riding inside the wagon soon grows restless. The canvas holds heat. Every bump is felt through the wooden bed. After less than an hour, the child asks to walk again, sore heel forgotten. Your mother says no. The answer produces a brief silence, then a request for water, then another silence. Riding in a covered wagon is rarely as comfortable as children imagine. The space is cramped and dim. Supplies shift with each rut. The canvas keeps out some sun, but traps warm air. A person inside cannot see much beyond the pale cloth and the occasional opening at the rear. Outside, there is at least wind. The child remains in the wagon until the next short stop. Late in the afternoon, the company begins looking for camp. The choice is shaped by water, grass, and the condition of the ground. Trees are useful for fuel and shade, but thick brush may hide animals or make it difficult to arrange the wagons. The best campsite has already been used many times. There are old fire rings near the creek and wagon tracks pressed deep into the bank. Chips of wood, scraps of cloth, and a broken barrel hoop lie in the grass. Mr. Bennett walks the area before choosing it. The water moves clearly enough. There is grazing nearby. The ground is level. The signal to halt moves down the line. The animals stop. People exhale in a way they do not notice until they hear someone else do the same. Another day's distance has been completed. The wagons are drawn into a loose arrangement rather than the perfect circle shown in later pictures and stories. The ground and available space rarely permit such neatness. Some wagons face the creek. Others stop where the teams can be unhitched without crowding. The first concern is livestock. Yokes are removed and set beside the wagons. Oxen shake their necks after the weight is lifted. Cattle are driven toward grass under the watch of several boys and men. Only when the animals are cared for does the family begin making its own camp. The day's work changes, but it does not end. A fire must be made. The children search for fuel. Near wooded streams, they gather fallen branches. On open stretches, families may use dried grass, brush, or buffalo chips. Tonight, there is wood. Your brother returns carrying an armful of sticks. Your sister brings smaller pieces tucked into her apron. The youngest child follows with one branch far too large to be useful, and insists on dragging it the entire way. Your father breaks it across his knee. Two smaller pieces are added to the fire. The child is satisfied. Water is carried from the creek. Your mother begins supper. Beans that soaked during the day are placed above the flames. Bacon is sliced. A little flour is mixed with water and salt. The sounds of evening spread across the camp. Knives against boards. Axes against wood. Animals calling from the grass. Children laughing now that they are no longer required to walk in a straight line. Someone nearby sings a few lines of a familiar hymn and stops before reaching the second verse. Clothing is examined. A torn seam is stitched. Dust is shaken from blankets. Shoes are checked for stones and worn places. Your father lifts each wagon wheel slightly and feels for movement. The repaired rear wheel remains tight. He adds grease to the axle anyway. The smell is sharp and heavy. Supper is ready before the sun reaches the horizon. The family eats slowly. Hunger makes the meal better than it would have seemed at home. Beans, bacon, and bread are enough. A cup of coffee remains near your father's hand. The youngest child tells the story of the lost shoe as though it happened to someone else. In this version, Sarah searched the entire prairie. No one corrects the account. After the meal, Mr. Bennett walks past and gives the estimated distance for the day: 14 miles. The number seems both small and enormous. 14 miles closer to Oregon. 14 miles farther from Missouri. Sarah writes it carefully in her notebook. She adds the weather, the delayed wagon, and the blister. The lost shoe is already there. As darkness gathers, the camp becomes quieter. Cooking tools are washed and stored. Food is secured. Fires settle into beds of red coals. The cattle appear as dark shapes beyond the wagons. Bells sound when one animal lowers its head or shifts position. Tonight's guards gather near the lead wagon. They speak softly while arranging their watches. Your family is not assigned until later in the week. That means everyone may sleep. Blankets are spread beneath the wagon and under the canvas. The air has cooled quickly with the setting sun. The youngest child lies down without complaint. Walking has made sleep simple. Your mother folds the child's clothing near the bedding and places both shoes together where they can be found in the dark. For a while, the family watches the remaining light. The western sky fades from gold to pale green, then gray. Stars emerge one at a time. No one can tell whether they appear in the same order each night. Beyond the fire, Sarah's notebook closes with a soft rustle. A wagon creaks as someone turns in bed. Farther away, a guard walks slowly through the grass. The light from his lantern moves between the wagons, passing across wheels, ropes, and sleeping canvas. For a moment, it catches the iron rim of the family's wagon and makes it shine. Then, the lantern continues on. The camp darkens again. Tomorrow will begin with the same bells, the same fires, and the same slow work of preparing to move. But for now, the wheels are still. The oxen graze quietly beyond the wagons, and 14 miles of trail rest behind the sleeping company. The days that follow begin to resemble one another. The company wakes in darkness, travels beneath the widening sky, rests when the sun is high, and searches for water and grass before evening. The same sounds return each morning. Bells beyond the wagons, fire catching beneath a kettle, leather tightening around a yoke. At first, everyone counts the days carefully. By the second week, the journey is remembered more often by places and small events. The morning they crossed a shallow creek. The afternoon when the wind blew dust beneath every wagon cover. The night a distant thunderstorm moved across the southern horizon, but never reached camp. Sarah continues to write dates in her notebook. Most of the others begin measuring time in meals, campsites, and miles. Life has narrowed into a moving household. The familiar walls are gone, but the work that once filled the house has followed the family west. Meals must still be prepared. Clothing must still be washed and mended. Children must be watched, corrected, comforted, and put to bed. Only now, each ordinary task happens beside a road. Food shapes much of the journey. Before leaving Missouri, the wagon's provisions seemed almost excessive. Sacks of flour, cornmeal, beans, rice, coffee, sugar, and dried fruit filled the wagon bed. Barrels of bacon and salt pork occupied valuable space. The weight of those supplies troubled the animals and worried your father. As the weeks pass, the load slowly becomes lighter. Every biscuit removes a little flour. Every pot of beans reduces what remains in a sack. Each morning's coffee brings the family closer to the bottom of a carefully packed container. No one can see the loss from one meal to the next. Over time, however, sacks soften and collapse. Barrels become easier to lift. Empty spaces appear between boxes. Those spaces are welcome because the wagon rolls more easily. They are also unsettling. Oregon remains far away. Your mother keeps track of the food more carefully than anyone else. She does not rely on memory alone. A folded sheet of paper is kept inside the family Bible, covered with small marks and figures. Flour is estimated by the week. Bacon is counted by pieces. Sugar is guarded with particular attention. The children know where it is stored. They also know they are not to touch it. At home, a spoonful of sugar might have seemed ordinary. On the trail, it belongs to special occasions, medicines, and the occasional meal intended to make a difficult day feel less plain. Most breakfasts are simple. Cornmeal mush can be prepared quickly and stretched with water. Biscuits are baked in a Dutch oven or cooked against the heat of a fire. Bacon provides flavor, salt, and fat. Coffee appears nearly every morning. Its smell moves through camp before sunrise and draws tired adults toward the fires. Some travelers drink it strong. Others make a small amount serve several people. When supplies begin to run low, roasted grain or roots may be mixed with what remains. Your father claims he can taste the difference immediately. Your mother says he drinks it anyway. At midday, families eat what can be carried without unpacking the wagon. Cold bread, a piece of bacon, cheese while any remains, dried apples. Sometimes there is nothing more than hard bread softened with water. The evening meal receives more attention. The wagons have stopped, the animals are grazing, and the family can prepare something warm. Beans are common because they travel well and feed many people. They are soaked when possible, sometimes in a covered pot carried carefully during the day. By evening, they require less fuel and less waiting. That plan does not always work. One afternoon, the pot tips inside the wagon. No one notices at first. The trail is rough, and the wagon has been shifting and creaking for hours. When the company stops, your mother reaches beneath a folded blanket and finds the pot lying on its side. Beans are scattered across the wagon bed. Water has soaked into a sack of clothing. For several seconds, she simply looks at the mess. Then your oldest sister begins picking up beans one by one. The younger children join her. Some beans are easy to recover. Others have rolled beneath barrels or into narrow spaces between boxes. A few are crushed under the edge of a chest. Your father reaches beneath the bedding and retrieves several more. Soon, the entire family is searching. The youngest child holds up each bean before placing it in the pot, inspecting it as though it might belong to someone else. Mrs. Turner passes the wagon and asks what has happened. When she hears, she returns to her own supplies and brings a cup of beans. Your mother starts to refuse. Mrs. Turner pours them into the pot before the refusal is complete. That evening's supper is served later than usual. Several beans contain small pieces of wagon dust, despite careful washing. No one mentions it. The next morning, your father builds a wooden brace to keep the pot upright. The solution is simple enough that everyone wonders why it had not been done earlier. Food on the trail requires constant adjustment. Fresh milk is available while the family's cow continues to provide it. Each morning, a small amount is collected before the animals move. The milk may be drunk, added to bread, or churned into butter when there is enough. Some families suspend a covered container beneath the wagon. The day's movement shakes the cream as the wagon travels. By evening, a small lump of butter may have formed. The children find this remarkable. They begin checking the container too often, slowing the process, and irritating your mother. One afternoon, the youngest child announces that the butter has arrived. The wagon is still moving. Your mother walks beside the team and asks how this could possibly be known. The child explains that the container has stopped splashing. At the next rest, everyone gathers to look. Inside is a pale, uneven lump no larger than a walnut. It is divided across the family's bread that evening. The portions are so small that the butter is nearly gone before anyone can properly taste it. Still, the children discuss it for the remainder of the meal. Hunting is less dependable than many emigrants expected. Before departure, some travelers imagined that wild game would regularly supplement their provisions. They carried rifles and pictured fresh meat beside every evening fire. There are days when animals can be found. A deer may appear near timber. Small game may be taken along a creek. Farther west, the company may encounter buffalo. But hunting consumes time and ammunition. An animal must be found, killed, cleaned, divided, and preserved. Hundreds of emigrants travel the same general route, and game near the trail quickly becomes scarce or wary. Mr. Bennett discourages men from leaving the company merely because someone saw an antelope in the distance. The younger man, who once hoped to travel 20 miles each day, ignores this advice only once. He walks several miles from the wagons, fires 2 shots, and returns after sunset, carrying nothing. By then, his supper is cold. No one asks whether the hunt was successful. When fresh meat is available, it is shared. The smell changes the entire camp. Children who seemed too tired to move appear near the fire. Adults discuss how long it has been since the last meal of its kind, though their estimates differ. Anything that cannot be eaten quickly must be dried, smoked, or salted. Waste is difficult to accept. The family has carried food across hundreds of miles. Every spoiled piece represents weight the animals pulled and nourishment that cannot be replaced. Water matters even more. A clear stream is greeted with relief, but clear water is not always safe. Camps used by many travelers may become fouled by animals and human waste. A river that looks clean can still carry illness. The family collects water upstream when possible. It is boiled when time and fuel permit. Even then, no one fully understands how disease spreads. People may blame night air, bad weather, unusual food, or the smell of a campsite. On warm afternoons, children ask for water often. They are reminded not to drink too quickly. The youngest forgets this instruction regularly. Each time, the cup is taken away before it is empty. Each time, the child looks betrayed. Children experience the trail differently from adults. They are tired, hungry, and frightened by unfamiliar events. They also find entertainment in places where adults see only work. A creek becomes a place for floating pieces of bark. A strange rock becomes a treasure. A discarded wagon hoop becomes the beginning of a game. Children from different families form friendships quickly. They walk together, gather fuel together, and invent stories about distant hills. Some friendships last only until one wagon company changes pace or route. Others continue for months. Sarah and your oldest sister now spend much of the day near one another. Sarah remembers what she wants to write in her notebook. Your sister helps her recall details in the evening. They disagree over nearly everything. Sarah records that the company traveled 14 miles. Your sister insists it was 15. Sarah describes the sky as cloudy. Your sister says there were only 3 clouds. The argument is serious until one of them laughs. The notebook usually receives Sarah's version. Children are not merely passengers. They carry water, collect firewood, gather buffalo chips where wood is scarce, watch younger siblings, herd cattle, and help prepare camps. Older boys may take turns driving loose livestock. Girls assist with cooking, washing, sewing, and child care. The exact division of work varies from one family to another, and necessity often rearranges it. When an adult becomes ill, a child's responsibilities can change in a single day. Even the youngest are expected to help in small ways. One evening, your mother gives the youngest child a cloth and asks for the tin plates to be wiped. The child works with great concentration. Each plate is cleaned slowly, examined, and placed beside the wagon. When supper is served the following night, one plate still carries a thin crescent of dried beans along its edge. Your father notices it. He turns the plate so the beans face away from him and begins eating. Trail work teaches children what adults value. A job completed imperfectly may still matter if it was completed earnestly. A complaint may be ignored if everyone is equally tired. A small kindness may be remembered longer than a difficult mile. The hardest labor often falls to women. The journey does not remove the work of maintaining a household. It adds distance, weather, dust, and limited supplies to every task. Your mother rises before the children and often lies down after them. She prepares food, washes clothing, tends blisters, mends torn fabric, tracks provisions, watches the youngest, and helps load and unload the wagon. If someone becomes sick, she will likely provide much of the nursing. If rain soaks the bedding, she must find a way to dry it. If food spoils, she must decide what can replace it. The wagon may belong to the family, but much of the life inside it rests in her hands. There are moments when the strain becomes visible. She grows quiet. She sits longer than usual before standing. She rubs one wrist while waiting for water to boil. No one comments on these things directly. Your oldest sister begins taking over small tasks without being asked. She mixes dough. She keeps the youngest child away from the fire. She checks that the cups are tied securely before the wagon moves. At first, your mother corrects nearly everything. The dough is too wet. The knot is too loose. The cups should be placed somewhere else. Gradually, the corrections become less frequent. One evening, your sister prepares the bread alone. The biscuits are uneven. One is nearly twice the size of another, and two have joined together in the Dutch oven. Your mother lifts the lid, studies them, and says, "They are done." Nothing more. Your sister looks pleased for the rest of the evening. Washing clothing is difficult. Water must be carried or the clothing taken to a stream. Soap is precious. Wet garments are draped across wagon sides, bushes, ropes, and patches of clean grass. Wind helps them dry. It also carries dust. A shirt washed in the morning may be nearly as dirty by the time it is worn again. Bathing is irregular and rarely private. Children splash in shallow water when weather and circumstances allow. Adults wash in sections, using basins, cloths, and whatever privacy can be created. Everyone becomes accustomed to dust. It remains in hair, beneath fingernails, along collars, and inside shoes. It settles on bedding and collects in the folds of clothing. At first, people try to remove all of it. Later, they settle for removing enough. Family relationships change in the close quarters of the journey. At home, a person could move to another room or walk outside alone. On the trail, everyone remains within sight of the wagon and one another for most of the day. Small habits become impossible to ignore. Your father hums the same tune while checking the animals. Your brother leaves tools wherever he last used them. The youngest child asks how far remains to Oregon at least once each afternoon. Your mother gives a different answer depending on her patience. Farther than today. Closer than yesterday. Ask your father. The final answer usually ends the conversation. Disagreements happen quietly and loudly. A child refuses to walk. Someone drinks more than an agreed share of water. A parent speaks too sharply. Two siblings argue over the shaded side of the wagon. Most conflicts pass because there is nowhere for them to grow. The next task arrives. An animal must be brought in. A meal must be cooked. The company begins moving. Each evening gives the travelers a little time that belongs to something other than survival. After supper, people visit between wagons. They exchange news, compare distances, and discuss the road ahead. Someone may produce a fiddle. The instrument has survived because its owner insisted there would be nights when music mattered more than the weight it added to the wagon. The first notes sound thin in the open air. Then conversations quiet. Children move closer. A familiar tune crosses the camp. No one dances at first. Everyone has walked too far. Eventually, two children begin turning in a small circle. A young couple joins them, slowly and with exaggerated care, pretending their tired feet are more graceful than they are. Mrs. Turner laughs. Mr. Bennett watches from beside a fire, one hand resting on his knee. Even Mr. Hale smiles. The song ends before anyone is ready. Another begins. For a short while, the trail feels less like a road and more like a neighborhood that has gathered outdoors. Religious services are sometimes held on Sundays, though the company may continue traveling when weather, water, or grass requires it. A prayer can be offered beside a wagon. A hymn can be sung without a church. Families carry different beliefs and practices, but familiar words offer comfort. They connect the open prairie to homes and communities left behind. Birthdays are also remembered. The family nearly forgets your brothers. The date is discovered when Sarah asks what day of the month it is. Your mother checks the folded record inside the Bible and realizes his birthday will come the following morning. There is no gift hidden in the wagon, no bakery, no table large enough for a celebration. After the children sleep, your mother removes a small portion of sugar and several dried apples from the family's supplies. She and your oldest sister prepare a simple dough. The apples are softened in water, chopped, and sweetened. The mixture is folded inside the dough and baked in the Dutch oven. It is not quite a pie and not quite a cake. One side burns slightly where the coals are too hot. In the morning, it is placed before your brother on a tin plate. For several seconds, he says nothing. The other children lean close enough that your mother tells them to move back. There is no candle. Your father cuts a thin twig, places it upright in the center, and lights the end. The flame burns for only a moment. Your brother laughs and blows it out. The small pastry is divided among the family and the Turners. Each person receives only a few bites. Sarah records the birthday in her notebook. She also records that the cake was excellent. Your sister reads this over her shoulder and says, "The blackened edge should be mentioned." Sarah closes the book. The days continue. Meals are cooked, children grow more capable, and adults learn how much work can be completed while tired. The company becomes familiar with one another's routines. Everyone knows which child belongs to which wagon. They know who carries extra needles, who owns the best axe, and who is most likely to have coffee remaining near the end of the month. The moving community is held together by such knowledge. As evening settles, fires appear along the grass. A kettle simmers. Someone repairs a shirt by firelight. Children finish a game. They began 3 camps earlier, using stones they have carried farther than anyone realizes. The day's dust remains on everything, but the wind has cooled. Near the Turner wagon, Sarah writes a final line and closes her notebook. Your mother checks tomorrow's flour and ties the sack again. The children lie beneath their blankets, quieter now than they were when the journey began. The fiddle is not played tonight. There is only the low murmur of families speaking near their fires and the soft movement of cattle beyond the wagons. One by one, the conversations end. The coals dim. A tin cup sways gently from a peg beneath the canvas, making a small sound whenever the evening wind reaches it. Then even that becomes still. By early summer, the prairie has changed. The fresh green grass near Missouri has grown taller and drier beneath weeks of sun. Creeks run lower than they did in spring. The air warms earlier each morning, and the cool hours before sunrise seem to disappear more quickly. The company has also changed. Faces are darker from the sun. Clothing has faded. Shoes show repairs. Children who once complained after a few miles now walk without being reminded. The wagons no longer look new. Canvas covers carry streaks from rain and dust. Iron rims are scratched. Wooden sides are marked where ropes, tools, and barrels have rubbed against them day after day. The families have learned how to move. They have also learned how little control they have over the country through which they are moving. Weather arrives without invitation. There is no roof large enough to shelter the company, no dry room waiting nearby, and no way to postpone the journey until every day is mild. When the sky clears, the sun belongs to everyone. When it darkens, so does the road ahead. For several days, there is no rain. The trail hardens beneath the wagons until every wheel lifts a pale cloud behind it. Dust hangs in the air long after the company has passed. By mid-morning, the wagons seem to move inside their own weather. The lead families breathe the cleanest air. Those behind receive what rises from every wheel, hoof, and boot ahead of them. People spread farther apart. Cloths are tied across mouths and noses. Children pull hats low over their eyes. Conversations grow shorter because speaking means opening the mouth to the dust. It settles everywhere, on hair and eyebrows, inside sleeves, between folded blankets, along the rims of cooking pots that were covered only moments before. A layer of it forms across the wagon bed each day. Your mother wipes the wooden surface in the evening, then watches another thin film appear before the next camp is reached. Bread tastes faintly of the trail. Coffee sometimes carries grit at the bottom of the cup. The family shakes dust from the quilts, but it rises around them and returns. One afternoon, the wind begins before noon. At first, it offers relief. The air moves against warm faces and presses the wagon canvas outward. Grass bends in long waves across the prairie. Then, the wind strengthens. Loose clothing snaps. Hat brims lift. A tin plate hanging beneath one wagon breaks free and rolls across the trail. Two children chase it until Mr. Bennett calls them back. The plate disappears into the grass. The company continues moving. There is no point stopping for every object the wind decides to take. By early afternoon, the sky has become pale with dust. The horizon loses its edge. Wagons ahead appear and vanish as the wind carries the road between them. Your father walks close to the oxen, one hand on the wooden bow of the yoke. He speaks to them even when there is no command to give. The animals lower their heads. Their broad bodies lean slightly against the wind. Near the rear of the company, a length of canvas tears loose from one wagon and begins striking against the wooden frame. The sound is sharp and repetitive. Mr. Bennett signals for the wagon to stop. Several families pass before finding enough firm ground to halt without blocking the trail. The owner climbs onto the wagon bed while two men hold the loose canvas. Wind pulls at it like a sail. The fabric twists from their hands and snaps above them. No one can hear the instructions being shouted. Finally, a rope is thrown across the top and secured beneath the wagon. The torn edge is folded inward. The repair is rough, but it will hold until evening. The company moves again. The wind continues. There is no conversation now. Only the creak of wheels, the low calls to animals, and the endless movement of dry air through grass. Sarah walks with one hand pressed over the pocket that holds her notebook. She has wrapped the book in cloth, but she checks it often. Your sister asks whether she plans to write about the wind. Sarah nods. Neither of them tries to speak again. The campsite that evening offers little shelter. There are no trees, only a shallow rise in the ground and a narrow stream bordered by reeds. The wagons are placed so their canvas ends face the wind as much as possible. Fires are difficult. Flames flatten against the earth. Sparks race away before anyone can stamp them out. Families build small windbreaks from boxes, barrels, and wagon boards. Supper is prepared close to the ground. Your mother shields the pan with her body, while your sister feeds the fire one piece of fuel at a time. Dust blows across the food despite every effort to cover it. The youngest child watches a biscuit on the plate. A small drift forms against one side. The child brushes it away. More appears. After a while, the biscuit is eaten without further attention. The wind remains after dark. Canvas creaks above the family. Ropes tighten and relax. Somewhere nearby, a loose chain taps against wood with steady patience. No one sleeps deeply. Each sudden pull on the canvas sounds as though the covering may tear free. Your father rises twice to check the ropes. The second time, your oldest brother follows him. Together they move around the wagon in darkness, tightening knots by touch, while the wind presses their clothing against them. By morning, the sky is clear. The air is still. Everything in camp is covered with the fine remains of yesterday's road. The lost tin plate is found several hundred yards away, caught against a clump of grass. Its edge is bent. The family that owns it presses it flat against a wagon board and continues using it. A few days later, clouds gather in the west. They begin as a dark line barely different from the distant ground. By afternoon, the line has risen into heavy towers. Mr. Bennett watches them while the company moves. The air has become unusually quiet. Birds that called from the grass during the morning have disappeared. The wind falls away. Heat settles over the wagons, close and unmoving. Thunder sounds far behind the company. It is low enough that the children mistake it for wagons crossing rough ground. A second rumble follows. This time, everyone hears it. Mr. Bennett looks for a campsite before the usual stopping time. There is a creek ahead, but the banks are low and open. Farther on, a line of trees follows a shallow bend in the water. The company reaches it as the first wind arrives. It comes colder than the air before it. Leaves turn pale undersides toward the sky. Grass bends. The temperature falls so quickly that people reach for coats still warm from the wagon. Teams are unyoked in haste. Animals are tied or gathered close. Loose tools and cooking equipment are placed beneath wagons. Canvas ropes are checked. Families prepare without fire or supper. The clouds fill the western half of the sky. A wide curtain of rain moves beneath them, darkening the prairie as it approaches. The first drops are large and widely spaced. They strike the canvas, one at a time. Then, the rain reaches camp. The sound becomes immediate and complete. Water pours from the wagon covers and runs beneath the wheels. People climb inside wherever space can be made. Children sit among flour sacks, bedding, and boxes, while adults hold the canvas closed against the wind. Lightning turns the interior white. Thunder follows before the light has fully faded. The oxen pull at their ropes. Cattle call beyond the wagons. Your father and brother remain outside with the animals. Their figures appear whenever lightning crosses the sky, coats dark with rain, hats bent low. Inside, your mother holds the youngest child against her. No one speaks during the loudest thunder. There is nothing useful to say. Water finds a weak place near the front of the canvas and begins dripping onto the bedding. Your sister places a pot beneath it. The first drop strikes the metal with a hollow sound. Then another. Soon the rhythm is lost beneath the rain. The storm moves over the camp slowly. For nearly an hour, the world beyond the wagon seems to consist only of water, light, and noise. Then the thunder begins to travel east. The rain softens. Individual sounds return. An animal shaking water from its hide. Someone calling from another wagon. The steady tapping inside the pot. When the family climbs out, evening has nearly disappeared. The campsite is mud. Fire rings are filled with water. Blankets left too close to the wagon openings are damp. One barrel has shifted but remains secured. A calf is missing. It belongs to the Collins family. The animal was tied near their wagon before the storm, but the rope has broken. In the darkness and confusion, it has wandered or run. Several men take lanterns and follow the creek. Mrs. Collins stands beneath the wagon cover, calling into the dark, though the calf would not know her voice from any other. The search continues while the rest of the company tries to settle. No fires are lit. Families eat cold bread and whatever can be reached without unpacking wet supplies. Your mother removes the damp bedding and hangs it beneath the wagon, where the wind may reach it. The youngest child falls asleep, wrapped in a dry coat. Nearly 2 hours later, lanterns appear along the creek. The calf walks between Mr. Collins and your brother, wet and tired but uninjured. It had become tangled in brush a short distance downstream. Mrs. Collins places both hands against its neck. The calf immediately begins searching the mud for grass. By morning, sunlight has returned. Steam rises from blankets spread across wagons and bushes. Clothing hangs from every available rope. Mud clings to wheels and boots. The company remains in place longer than usual. The animals need time to graze, and the ground near the creek is too soft for the wagons. Children step carefully at first, then give up and walk barefoot through the mud. Sarah sits on an overturned bucket with her notebook open. Several pages near the back have become damp. She separates them gently and allows them to dry in the sun. The ink on one line has blurred until the words can no longer be read. She studies it for a moment, then closes the book and places it beside her. The mud holds the company for most of the day. By the following morning, the trail is firm enough to continue. Within a week, the storm has become another point in memory. The night the calf disappeared. The night the pot filled beneath the leaking canvas. The night no one ate a warm supper. Then the weather turns hot again. The company approaches a heavily used crossing along the Platte River. Wagons have camped there for weeks. The grass near the water is worn almost to the ground. Old fire pits cover the higher bank. Pieces of rope, broken wood, and abandoned cloth lie scattered among the tracks. The river looks broad and pale beneath the sun. Its moving water seems cleaner than the crowded campsite around it. Mr. Bennett chooses a place farther upstream, but there are already wagons there. Families settle wherever room remains. The air carries the smells of animals, smoke, damp earth, and waste. People have learned to be cautious about such places, though caution has limits. Animals must drink. Barrels must be filled. The next dependable water may be many miles away. The company remains only one night. 2 mornings later, a man in the rear wagon becomes ill. His name is Mr. Whitcomb. He is an older farmer traveling with his daughter, her husband, and 3 grandchildren. He has walked most days with a long stick and a dark coat folded across one arm, no matter how warm the afternoon becomes. At breakfast, he says he has no appetite. By midday, he can no longer walk. A place is made for him inside the wagon. Mr. Hale visits during the nooning stop. He asks questions, feels the man's forehead, and mixes something from one of his bottles. Mr. Whitcomb drinks it because everyone expects him to. The company shortens the afternoon's travel. That evening, another person becomes ill, then a child in a different family. The symptoms come quickly: stomach pain, weakness, vomiting, and diarrhea. People begin speaking the word quietly. Cholera. No one is certain. Mr. Hale cannot confirm what he cannot see or understand. He knows only that the sick must be given water, kept as clean as possible, and watched. Families move their wagons farther apart. Water is boiled. Cooking pots are scrubbed. Parents keep children close. Every cough, every complaint of pain draws attention. Your mother helps Mr. Whitcomb's daughter wash bedding. She carries water, heats it, and wrings cloth until her hands redden. Your sister watches the younger children from both families. The company does not travel the next day. Mr. Bennett walks between wagons, speaking quietly with each household. Some families want to move immediately, fearing the campsite itself is dangerous. Others believe travel will kill those already weakened. There is no choice that feels safe. The sun rises higher. Flies gather. The sick child begins to improve by afternoon. The second adult remains weak but alert. Mr. Whitcomb does not. He lies beneath the wagon canvas while his daughter sits beside him. His grandchildren are kept nearby but not inside. Sarah brings them pieces of bread. They do not eat much. The youngest asks when their grandfather will walk again. No one answers directly. Near sunset, Mr. Whitcomb asks to be moved where he can see outside. His son-in-law and Mr. Hale lift him carefully. He rests near the opening of the wagon, supported by folded blankets. The prairie beyond camp has turned gold in the evening light. Cattle move slowly through the grass. Farther west, the Platte reflects the sky in narrow pieces between its sandbars. Mr. Whitcomb watches for a long time. His daughter holds a cup near his mouth. He drinks only a little. During the night, his breathing grows quieter. By morning, he is gone. The company remains still. There is no bell for animals and no early call to prepare the wagons. Men choose a place away from the water and begin digging. The ground is firm beneath the upper layer of soil. Shovels make a dull sound as they enter it. Mr. Whitcomb is wrapped in a blanket. His daughter removes the dark coat he carried each day and folds it beneath his head. The family Bible is opened. A prayer is read. The grandchildren stand between their parents. The youngest holds Sarah's hand. No marker can be made that will last forever. A wooden board is cut and placed at the head of the grave. His name and the year are carved into it. Stones are laid across the earth. The wagons will move on. Grass will return. Weather will soften the letters. For now, the name is clear. When the company prepares to leave, Mr. Whitcomb's walking stick remains beside the family wagon. His eldest grandson picks it up. The stick is too tall for him. Its end drags along the ground. No one asks him to leave it behind. The other sick travelers recover slowly. The child is walking again within 2 days. The second adult rides for nearly a week before returning to the trail on foot. Mr. Hale's medicine is credited by some and doubted by others. He makes no claim for it. The company becomes more careful around water, though perfect care remains impossible. They boil what they can. They avoid campsites that smell wrong. They move upstream from other wagons whenever space allows. Still, the road ahead has been traveled by thousands. Every riverbank carries signs of those who came before. The days resume. Wagons move. Meals are prepared. Children play near the evening fires. Mr. Whitcomb's family remains with the company. His place beside their wagon is empty, but his stick now travels in the hands of a small boy who uses it to push stones from the trail. Sarah writes less for several days. When she opens the notebook again, She records the date of the burial and the location as closely as she can. She does not describe the prayer or the coat beneath his head. Those details remain with the people who saw them. Weeks later, the company camps beneath a clear sky. The air is mild. There is enough grass for the animals and enough wood for the fires. No storm approaches. No one is ill. After supper, families sit quietly near their wagons. The children do not ask for music. The day has been ordinary, and everyone is grateful for it. Your mother folds a dry blanket. Your father checks the water barrel and finds it full. Near the Turner wagon, Sarah places her notebook beside her without opening it. Beyond the camp, bells sound softly as the cattle graze. The trail behind them holds dust, rain, and one grave beneath a wide sky. Ahead, the land darkens into evening. For tonight, the company remains together. The fires burn low, and nothing more is asked of them until morning. For many weeks, the prairie has offered few signs that the company is moving at all. The sky remains wide. The trail continues west. Rivers bend slowly across the land, and each day's camp resembles places already left behind. Distances are recorded. Miles accumulate. Yet the horizon seems to retreat at the same pace as the wagons advance. Then, one morning, something rises above it. At first, the shape is so faint that no one is certain it is there. A pale formation stands in the distance, separated from the low country around it. The morning light softens its edges, and heat already beginning to gather near the ground makes it seem to tremble. Mr. Bennett studies it for several minutes. Then he names it Courthouse Rock. The words pass backward along the wagon line. People who have been walking with their heads lowered look up. Children climb onto wagon tongues during a brief stop. Someone removes a guidebook from beneath a seat and searches for the description. The formation does not resemble any courthouse the family has seen. It is larger, quieter, and much older than the name given to it. Its steep walls rise from the plains like the remains of some immense building whose doors and windows were never carved. Still, emigrants have called it Courthouse Rock, and that name is enough to make it familiar. It has appeared in letters and trail guides. Travelers who passed this way before described seeing it after weeks along the Platte. They wrote that it meant progress. They warned that it would appear closer than it was. Both things are true. The company travels toward it for hours. Courthouse Rock remains ahead. Its shape becomes clearer, but it never seems to arrive at the proper speed. Each mile brings more detail without bringing the base much nearer. The children watch it through most of the morning. The youngest decides the formation must be moving away. Your father says it has been standing in the same place longer than anyone can remember. The child considers this and continues watching in case he is wrong. By afternoon, the wagons draw close enough to see shadows along the rock walls. Smaller formations stand nearby. People point toward one that some call Jail Rock. The names amuse the children. They imagine an entire stone town rising from the prairie. Courthouse, jail, streets, and houses large enough for giants. Sarah opens her notebook during the midday rest. She attempts to sketch the formation. The first drawing is too narrow. The second leans sharply to one side. She turns the page and tries again. Your sister watches from over her shoulder. It looked taller this morning, she says. It was farther away. That should make it look smaller. Sarah looks at the page. She does not answer. The third drawing is wider. Beneath it, she writes the date. The company does not remain long. The landmark is admired, described, and then slowly left behind. By evening, Courthouse Rock stands east of the wagons, catching the last light on the same walls that face the morning sun. For the first time, the children understand that even the largest things on the trail can pass behind them. A few days later, another shape appears. This one is narrower. It rises from a bluff beside the river, a long stone tower with a pointed top. Chimney Rock. The excitement moves through the company more quickly this time. Nearly everyone knows the name. Emigrants have written about it for years. Some have drawn it in diaries or carved its shape into letters sent home. It has become one of the trail's great signs, proof that the wagons have reached the country described by those who went before. The youngest child studies it carefully. "It is not a chimney," he says. No one asks what it is. He decides it resembles a candle. For the remainder of the day, the family travels toward Candle Rock. Sarah refuses to write that name in her notebook. The children say it anyway. Chimney Rock changes as the wagons approach. From one angle, the narrow spire appears tall and separate. From another, it seems to grow directly from the bluff beneath it. The company stops early enough for people to look without walking. Some climb a nearby rise. Others remain beside the wagons and watch the evening light turn the formation from pale stone to gold, then gray. A man from another company carries a chisel. He speaks of carving his name somewhere near the landmark, as other emigrants have done along the road. Mr. Bennett tells him they will not delay the company for it. The man says he requires only a few minutes. Mrs. Turner asks whether his name will help anyone reach Oregon. He returns the chisel to his wagon. That night, Chimney Rock remains visible beneath the moon. Its outline stands against the sky after the surrounding bluff has darkened. Campfires burn low along the river, and travelers from several companies gather within sight of one another. The landmark has drawn them together. Some arrived from Missouri. Some began farther east. A few are bound for California. Others speak of Oregon City, the Willamette Valley, or relatives already living near the Columbia River. For one evening, all of them rest beneath the same stone tower. The place feels crowded. Yet it is not empty country, made busy only by the arrival of wagons. The trail crosses lands that have been traveled, hunted, traded across, and lived upon for generations beyond counting. Long before emigrants followed the Platte, native nations knew its water, seasons, crossings, grazing places, and storms. Paths connected villages, hunting grounds, trading places, and neighboring peoples. The wagon road follows portions of that older geography. In the country farther east, the company has passed through lands associated with the Kaw, Oto-Missouria, Pawnee, and other nations. As the wagons continue along the Platte and toward Fort Laramie, they move through country known to Lakota, Cheyenne, Arapaho, and many others. Boundaries are not drawn across the grass. The emigrants cannot see where one homeland meets another. They see rivers, hills, and open ground, and often mistake the absence of fences for the absence of ownership. Signs of human presence are easy to miss when one does not know how to read them. A line of poles in the distance, old fire circles, horse tracks that do not belong to the wagon companies, a crossing used long before wagon wheels reached it, places where grass has been cut, game dressed, or families camped during another season. The country carries histories the emigrants have not learned. Encounters happen gradually. A few riders may appear on a distant ridge and watch the wagon line pass. At other times, native families approach the trail to trade. News moves in both directions. People living along the route know where wagon companies have camped, where animals are gathering, and which crossings are difficult. Emigrants carry reports from the east, along with goods, tools, cloth, and diseases, whose arrival no one can yet see. Most encounters are brief. There may be curiosity, caution, and an exchange of objects without enough shared language for long conversation. At a wide bend in the river, several Lakota men and women arrive near the evening camp. Their horses are lean and sure-footed. They move easily over ground where wagon teams labor. Mr. Bennett meets them beyond the first wagons with 2 other men from the company. He carries no rifle in his hands. The visitors have dried meat, dressed hides, and several pairs of moccasins to trade. Emigrants bring coffee, flour, cloth, tobacco, needles, and small metal goods. The exchange begins slowly. An object is held up. Another is offered. Heads shake, hands move. A little more is added. Children watch from a distance until mothers call them back from crowding too close. Your mother examines a pair of soft moccasins. They are beautifully made, lighter than the spare shoes packed in Missouri, and far more comfortable than the pair now rubbing against her heel. The woman holding them runs one finger along the stitching and then points toward the cloth folded over your mother's arm. Your mother offers a length of it. The woman studies the amount and gestures for more. Another piece is added. The moccasins change hands. The trade ends without ceremony. Your mother turns them over carefully. The soles are made for moving across the country, rather than resisting it. She does not wear them immediately. She wraps them in cloth and places them inside the wagon, saving them for the day her shoes can no longer be repaired. Nearby, the youngest child stares at one of the horses. A boy seated upon it stares back. They appear close in age. The child raises one hand. After a moment, the boy does the same. No introduction follows. The horses turn, and the visitors ride away before darkness settles. The youngest watches until they disappear beyond the grass. At supper, he asks where they are going. No one in the family knows. The children have become accustomed to asking where emigrants came from and where they intend to settle. The same questions cannot always be answered by the people moving through the country around them. The Lakota families are not crossing an unknown wilderness toward a distant home. They are already within a world they know. As wagon traffic grows, that world changes. Thousands of animals consume grass near the river. Camps strip firewood from familiar places. Hunters reduce game close to the trail. Springs become muddy. Riverbanks are cut by wheels and hooves. Objects are left behind. So are sicknesses. Illness carried by emigrants can spread beyond the wagon companies into native communities with little resistance to diseases introduced from elsewhere. The travelers rarely see the full consequences. They remain for a night and move on. The people who live along the route remain after the dust settles. There are moments of assistance and trade. There are also misunderstandings, thefts, fear, retaliation, and violence. The balance grows more difficult as the wagon road becomes more crowded and the federal government presses farther into western lands. Many emigrants have heard frightening stories before leaving Missouri. Rumors travel faster than wagons. An ordinary meeting may become an attack by the time it is repeated several camps later. A request for payment at a crossing may be described as a threat. Travelers who expect danger sometimes see it before anything has happened. Mr. Bennett reminds the company that caution does not require insult. Animals must be guarded. Children must remain close. Weapons must not be raised because riders appear in the distance. The rules are practical. They do not remove fear, but they prevent fear from making every decision. The trail continues toward Scott's Bluff. Here, the land rises more sharply around the river. High formations narrow the country and force wagons toward particular passages. The bluffs are unlike the distant landmarks behind them. They do not merely stand beside the route. They shape it. Wagons follow the easier ground through Mitchell Pass, where steep walls rise on either side. The company's long line compresses. Dust settles more heavily because there is less wind between the slopes. Voices echo faintly. The children become quiet. After weeks beneath an open sky, the nearness of stone feels almost like entering a building. Sarah walks with her notebook tucked away. There is too much to see. Layers of pale rock rise above the wagons. Birds circle near the upper walls. Loose stones slide beneath boots and wagon wheels. The animals pull steadily. No great accident occurs. No wagon breaks. The company simply passes through. On the western side, the country opens again. People turn to look back. The trail disappears between the bluffs, carrying the next company toward them. Fort Laramie lies ahead. By the time the emigrants see it, the word fort has produced a grander picture in many minds than the buildings themselves can satisfy. Some children expect stone walls, towers, and soldiers. Instead, the post appears as a cluster of structures near the meeting of the Laramie and North Platte rivers. In the mid-1840s, it is still primarily a trading post, known for years as Fort John, not yet the military station it will become. Its usefulness matters more than its appearance. After weeks of camps and wagon tracks, the sight of permanent walls feels remarkable. There are doors, windows, roofs that do not move. Smoke rises from chimneys. People enter and leave buildings without packing them afterward. The area around the fort is crowded. Traders, trappers, native families, emigrants, animals, and wagons gather near the post. Several languages can be heard within a few steps. Horses are examined. Hides are carried into storage rooms. Blacksmith hammers ring from the work area. Travelers compare news with people coming from farther west. The company stops. For once, the wagons will remain still for more than a single night. Repairs begin immediately. Axles are examined. Iron parts are replaced when replacements can be purchased. Harnesses are mended. Animals are checked for sores and fatigue. Prices are high. Every item at the fort has traveled a long distance or is in great demand. Flour, coffee, tools, and clothing cost more than they did in Missouri. Families stand beside counters and reconsider what they truly require. A person who once argued for bringing furniture may now pay dearly for a single replacement bolt. Your father purchases grease, several nails, and a small length of chain. He looks at the price of coffee and returns it to the shelf. Your mother says nothing. That evening, he mentions twice that the family still has enough. The fort offers something more valuable than supplies. It offers news. Travelers arriving from the west speak of river levels, grass, illness, and road conditions. They describe the country beyond, sometimes helpfully, and sometimes with the confidence of people whose memories have already softened. One man says South Pass is easier than expected. Another warns that the Snake River country will test every animal. A family traveling east has left Oregon after only one winter. They speak of rain, mud, and homesickness. Their presence unsettles some emigrants. Oregon has been imagined as a destination. The eastbound family makes it a place one might also leave. Mr. Bennett listens to every account and accepts none of them completely. The company will have to meet the road as it comes. Letters are written. At the fort, emigrants can leave messages to be carried east by traders or returning travelers. No one knows exactly when they will arrive. Still, paper appears throughout the camp. People sit on boxes, blankets, and wagon tongues, trying to fit months of experience into a few pages. Your mother begins a letter to her parents. She describes Courthouse Rock and Chimney Rock. She says the children are healthy. She mentions the storm, but not the fear inside the wagon. She writes that the company lost a good man to illness. Then she stops. The page rests against her knee. The youngest child sits nearby, drawing a shape in the dust with a stick. It has a tall, narrow center and a wide base. "Candle Rock," he says. Your mother looks at the drawing. She returns to the letter and writes that the children still find reasons to laugh. The letter is folded around a small dried flower your sister collected near the river. It will likely be broken before reaching Missouri. It goes inside anyway. Sarah writes a longer letter. She copies several lines from her notebook and includes one small drawing of Chimney Rock. The formation still leans slightly, but she has decided it is close enough. Mrs. Turner tells her not to use every detail. "You will need something to tell us when we arrive," she says. Sarah considers this and leaves several lines unwritten. The company spends a final evening near the fort. Permanent buildings cast square shadows across the ground. Lantern light shines through windows. Somewhere beyond the wagons, a hammer continues working after sunset. The sounds are comforting at first. Then they begin to feel unfamiliar. The families have grown used to open camps, low fires, and darkness without walls. Tomorrow, the roofs will remain behind. The trail will continue toward country none of them has seen. Before sleeping, your mother unfolds the new moccasins. She removes her worn shoes and places one foot inside. The leather is soft. The fit is close but comfortable. She takes 3 quiet steps beside the wagon, then returns to the blanket and removes them. Her old shoes are placed near the fire for morning. The moccasins are wrapped again. Not yet. Later, when the trail becomes harder. Across the camp, letters have been gathered for the eastbound journey. By the time the families wake, some may already be moving back toward Missouri. For one night, their words remain nearby. Messages to parents, promises to write again, descriptions of landmarks already fading into memory. The fort settles gradually. The hammer stops. Lanterns disappear from the windows. Animals shift beyond the wagons, and the river moves quietly through the darkness. Sarah closes her notebook. The family lies beneath the canvas. Behind them stand the first great landmarks of the Western Road. Ahead wait higher ground, colder nights, and the long approach to the mountains. For now, the fort keeps its roofs, the river keeps its course, and the letters wait together in the dark. West of Fort Laramie, the road begins to rise. The change is gradual enough that no one notices it at first. The wagons still follow the North Platte. Grass still bends along the riverbanks, and the sky remains broad above the company. Yet the country no longer feels level. The river presses closer to bluffs and rocky ridges. The trail climbs away from the water, then descends again. Stones appear beneath the grass. The oxen lean harder into their yokes on slopes that would once have seemed too small to mention. The mornings grow cooler. Even after the sun rises, a thin chill remains in the shadows of the wagons. Families reach for coats that have been buried beneath summer clothing for weeks. The mountains are still ahead, but their presence can be felt in the air and in the steady upward pull of the road. The company has left the permanent roofs of the fort behind. Supplies purchased there are already being used. Fresh axle grease darkens the wooden hubs. New nails hold patched boxes together. Letters sent east travel in the opposite direction, carried by people the family may never meet again. Your mother's worn shoes survive several more days. Then one sole begins separating near the toe. She discovers it during the midday rest. The leather lifts each time she bends her foot, allowing dust and small stones inside. Your father offers to repair it that evening. She looks at the road ahead. The ground has become rougher, and the leather has already been stitched twice. Instead of answering, she opens the wagon and removes the bundle purchased from the Lakota woman. The moccasins are still wrapped in cloth. She puts them on beneath the narrow shade of the canvas. They fit more closely now than they did beside Fort Laramie. The soft leather settles around her feet without the stiffness of the old shoes. She takes several steps through the grass. The youngest child watches with interest. "Are those for Oregon?" he asks. "They are for today." The worn shoes are tied together and placed inside the wagon. They may still be useful in mud or near a fire. For the rest of the afternoon, your mother walks in the moccasins. No one says much about them. By evening, however, she is no longer stopping to shake stones from her shoes. The river remains beside the company for days. Sometimes it moves quietly through broad shallows, divided by sandbars and low islands. Elsewhere, the current presses against cut banks, or runs deep between darker stretches of water. It has guided the wagons west. Soon, it must be crossed. The thought has been discussed since Fort Laramie. Travelers coming from the west described several possible places. At some crossings, ferries carry wagons for a fee. At others, families ford the river when the water is low enough. Some attempt to float their wagons across after sealing the wooden beds with tar, cloth, or anything that might slow the leaks. Every method has risks. A ferry may be expensive or poorly made. A ford that was safe the week before may deepen after rain or snowmelt. A wagon designed to hold flour and bedding may not behave like a boat, merely because someone wishes it to. Mr. Bennett listens to every account. The younger man who once wanted to travel 20 miles a day has become quieter since the first weeks of the journey. But he still dislikes paying for anything that might be done without help. He believes the company should ford. "The river is wide," he says, "but it is not moving fast." Mr. Bennett looks at the water. A broad river can hide its depth. He sends 2 riders upstream to inspect the bank and ask other companies where they crossed. They return near sunset. A ferry is operating several miles ahead. The price is high. The landing is crowded. The next ford lies farther west and is reported to be difficult for loaded wagons. Mr. Bennett decides the company will use the ferry. Several families object. They have spent more than expected at Fort Laramie. Coffee, tools, and repairs have reduced the money intended for Oregon. The ferry charge feels unreasonable. Mr. Bennett does not argue that it is fair. He says only that a lost wagon will cost more. The company camps near the landing the following afternoon. The river is wider here than the children expected. Water moves around bars of pale sand. Driftwood turns slowly in the current. On the far bank, wagons belonging to another company are being reloaded beneath a line of cottonwoods. The ferry is a broad wooden platform supported by boats or heavy timbers. A cable stretches across the river, guiding it from one bank to the other. It looks both stronger and less secure than anyone hoped. The ferrymen have been working since morning. Wagons wait in a long line along the bank. Oxen graze nearby or stand in the shallow water. Families unload goods they do not trust to the ferry and carry them across separately in smaller boats. The company will not cross before the following day. That evening, Mr. Bennett assigns an order. The lightest wagons will go first. Families with young children will be placed near the middle, after the ferrymen and the company have seen how the platform handles the current. Livestock will cross separately. Some animals may be taken by boat. Most will swim or wade where the water allows. Your family begins preparing before sunrise. The wagon is not emptied completely, but much of its load is removed. Flour, bedding, the family Bible, clothing, and tools are carried to a waiting boat. Barrels are checked and tied. Anything that might shift is braced. The wagon looks strangely bare. After months of seeing it filled to the canvas, the exposed wooden bed seems larger than it is. Your mother sits with the children near the supplies. Your father and oldest brother remain with the wagon and oxen. The ferry crosses and returns. Each trip takes time. A wagon is guided onto the platform. Its wheels are blocked. Ropes are secured. People step back while the ferrymen examine the balance. Then the platform is released from the landing. The current catches it immediately. The ferry moves downstream before the cable pulls it toward the opposite bank. Water presses against the timbers. The platform turns slightly, straightens, and continues. Everyone waiting on shore watches. No one speaks until the wagon reaches the far side. The ferrymen guide it onto land. Another trip begins. By mid-morning, the sun is warm and the line has shortened. One family refuses to wait. They move upstream and attempt to ford with two lightly loaded wagons. People on the bank watch their teams enter the water. For several yards, the crossing appears easy. Then the river rises against the oxen's sides. The animals turn slightly downstream. Drivers shout and pull at the reins. Men wade beside the wagons, water reaching their waists. The first team finds firmer ground. The second wagon hesitates in a deeper channel. For a few long moments, the current pushes against its canvas side. Then, the oxen regain their footing. Both wagons reach the opposite bank. The family succeeds. Those waiting near the ferry release the breath they had been holding. The younger man who argued for fording says nothing. When your family's turn approaches, the children are moved to the smaller boat with your mother and the supplies. The youngest child does not want to go without the wagon. He has slept beside it, walked beside it, and watched it every day since Missouri. Seeing it remain on shore feels wrong. Your mother takes his hand. It is coming after us. He looks toward your father beside the oxen. What if it does not? Your mother does not promise that nothing can happen. She points to the far bank. We will stand there and watch. The boat pushes away. Its movement is quieter than the ferry. Oars enter the water with soft splashes. The boat rises and turns with the current. The children sit between sacks of flour and folded bedding. Sarah and Mrs. Turner are already waiting on the opposite side. Sarah holds the notebook beneath her arm and raises one hand as the boat approaches. The youngest child watches only the wagon. It is being led onto the ferry. The oxen do not like the hollow sound beneath their hooves. One stops at the edge and pulls backward. Your father stands near its head. He speaks calmly, resting one hand against the animal's cheek. The ox lowers its head. After another moment, it steps forward. The wagon follows. The platform settles slightly beneath the weight. Ropes are fastened. Your father remains aboard with the ferrymen. Your brother crosses separately with the livestock. The ferry moves from shore. From the far bank, the wagon seems smaller than it did from beside the house in Missouri. The white canvas reflects the sun. The wheels remain perfectly still while the river moves beneath them. The platform drifts downstream. The youngest child grips your mother's hand. The cable tightens. Slowly, the ferry angles toward them. There is no sudden danger. No rope breaks. No wheel slips from the platform. The crossing simply takes longer than anyone wants it to. When the ferry reaches the landing, men guide the wagon onto firm earth. The youngest child runs toward it before being called back from the moving wheels. Your father jumps down. He places one hand on the child's head and continues helping secure the team. The reunion lasts only a moment. There is work to do. Supplies must be returned to the wagon. Livestock must be gathered. Wet ropes are coiled. Payment is made. By afternoon, the family's moving household has been rebuilt on the western bank. The company camps nearby. No one wants to travel farther after the crossing. Children walk along the shore, searching for smooth stones. Adults dry clothing and inspect supplies. Several sacks have become damp from the smaller boat, though nothing is ruined. The ferry continues working until near sunset. From camp, the families watch wagon after wagon cross the river. Some belong to people they met at Fort Laramie. Others belong to strangers. Each platform carries another household west. That night, the river sounds different. It is no longer guiding the family from beside the trail. It moves behind them. The country beyond the crossing rises more steadily. The company begins following the Sweetwater River toward the Continental Divide. Granite ridges and isolated formations replace the long bluffs of the Platte. The trail narrows between rock and water. The air becomes thinner and drier. At night, temperatures fall quickly. Blankets that felt too heavy on the plains are brought out again. Frost sometimes appears on grass near the river before melting beneath the morning sun. The animals show the strain. Their ribs are easier to see. Hair has worn away where yokes and harnesses rub. Teams that once pulled impatiently at the start of the day now wait with heads lowered. The company shortens its distances when grass is poor. Mr. Bennett pays more attention to the animals than to the number of miles. A wagon can be repaired. An exhausted team may not recover. Families begin lightening their loads again. Objects that survived Missouri, the Platte, and Fort Laramie are reconsidered beside the Sweetwater. A second cooking pot. A heavy chest. Tools intended for work that will not begin until Oregon. Extra bedding. Nothing is discarded carelessly. People trade what they can. Useful objects are offered to eastbound travelers. Some are left neatly beside the trail for the company behind. The grass near certain campsites is scattered with the remains of earlier decisions. A broken stove, a chair without a back, a trunk with its lid missing, pages from a book moving in the wind. Your mother looks at each object as the wagon passes. She thinks of the rocking chair left in the yard. The chair never reached the trail. Perhaps that is kinder. Near the Sweetwater, another great landmark appears. Independence Rock rises from the open country like the rounded back of an immense animal resting beside the river. It is lower than the formations near Chimney Rock, but far broader. Its smooth granite surface catches light differently as the day moves. Emigrants hope to reach it by early July. Those who arrive near Independence Day believe they are traveling on schedule, with enough summer remaining to cross the mountains before snow. The company reaches the rock later than some had hoped, but not late enough to cause alarm. Names cover portions of its surface. Some are painted with grease or tar. Others are scratched or carved into the stone. Initials, dates, hometowns, messages left by people already farther west. The children move among them slowly. Sarah reads names aloud until there are too many. A man from Ohio, a family from Illinois, someone who passed 3 years earlier. A name with no date, a date with no name. The rock has become a kind of book written by travelers who do not know one another. Sarah carries her notebook. Several children urge her to add her own name to the stone. She considers it. She has a pencil and a small knife. Her name could be scratched near the lower edge where the granite is easier to reach. Instead, she opens the notebook. She writes, "We came to Independence Rock today and found that everyone had already been here." Your sister reads the line. That is not everyone. It feels like everyone. This time, your sister allows the sentence to remain. The company camps near the rock. People climb only as far as they safely can. From the higher ground, the wagons appear small beside the river. The trail can be seen entering from the east and continuing west toward more broken country. Mr. Whitcomb's grandson stands near the base with the walking stick. He has grown into it slightly, though the end still drags when he forgets to lift it. He studies one carved name for a long time. It does not belong to his grandfather. The family did not carve a marker here. The grave lies far behind them beneath grass and weather. The boy presses the end of the stick into the dust and draws a single straight line. Then he walks back toward the wagons. Beyond Independence Rock, the Sweetwater passes through a narrow opening in the granite known as Devil's Gate. The river has cut a deep channel between high stone walls. The trail does not pass through the gorge itself. Wagons travel around it over easier ground. Still, the formation draws everyone's attention. Water appears to enter the rock and vanish. The children stand at a safe distance, listening to the river echo between the walls. The youngest asks why the trail does not follow it. Your father looks into the narrow gorge, because the river does not need a wagon. The answer seems sufficient. The mountains ahead appear more serious now. Snow remains on distant heights, even in summer. Wind moves colder across the open country. The company expects the Continental Divide to arrive as a sharp crest, a place where wagons will climb a steep mountain, pause at the top, and see the west spread beneath them. Instead, South Pass approaches quietly. The trail rises for days through broad, open country between higher ranges. Slopes are long but manageable. Wagons move across sage, grass, and pale earth. There is no single dramatic ascent, no narrow ledge, no summit marked by a stone wall or sudden view. One afternoon, Mr. Bennett stops near a shallow rise. He speaks with a traveler coming from the west, then looks back at the company. They have reached the divide. Several people ask where it is. Mr. Bennett points toward the ground beneath them. The answer is disappointing to the children. They expected something taller. Your youngest brother looks ahead, then behind. The country appears much the same in both directions. A breeze moves through the grass. The wagons stand beneath a sky that has not changed. Yet water falling east of this place will eventually find its way toward the Atlantic. Water falling west will travel toward the Pacific. The family has crossed the backbone of the continent without seeing a peak. Sarah opens her notebook. For once, she does not write immediately. She looks down at the trail. The wheels have made ordinary ruts across an extraordinary boundary. At last, she records the date. Nothing more. The company travels a few miles beyond the pass before camping. The wind is cold after sunset. Families gather closer to their fires. Coats are worn while supper cooks. Animals graze among sagebrush, their bells carrying clearly through the thin evening air. Your mother wears the moccasins near the fire. The old shoes remain tied inside the wagon, though no one expects them to be used again. The youngest child asks whether Oregon can now be seen. Your father says no. The child asks whether it is close. Your mother answers before he can. Closer than yesterday. The phrase has been used many times. Tonight, it feels different. Behind the company, rivers lead back toward the plains. Ahead, they will begin leading west. The fire settles. The wagons cast dark shapes beneath the stars. No sign marks the divide, and no sound announces that it has been crossed. The animals graze. The wind moves softly through the sage. And somewhere beyond the sleeping camp, a narrow stream begins its long journey toward the Pacific. Beyond South Pass, the rivers begin flowing west. The change is invisible at first. A shallow stream moves through sagebrush beside the trail. Its water looks much like the water left behind on the eastern side of the divide. It reflects the same sky and bends around the same pale stones. Yet, its direction has changed. If followed far enough, it will join other rivers moving toward the Pacific. The wagons follow more slowly. The country west of the divide is broad, dry, and exposed. Sage replaces much of the grass. Water appears at greater intervals, and the distances between useful camps begin to matter more than the number of miles a family hopes to travel. The company has crossed the center of the continent. Oregon still lies weeks away. By now, no one asks whether the journey will be difficult. The question has become how much difficulty remains. Supplies are lower. The wagon no longer feels crowded in the way it did outside the house in Missouri. Flour sacks lie flat against the wooden bed. Several barrels are empty. Boxes that once required 2 people to lift can now be moved by 1. The extra space should feel encouraging. Instead, your mother studies it carefully each time she measures flour. The family has enough, provided the journey continues according to plan. Plans have become less comforting than they were in Missouri. Grass determines where the animals can stop. Water determines how long they can travel. Weather decides whether a road remains open. A single difficult crossing can consume an entire day. Food is counted by what remains rather than what was packed. Your mother's paper inside the family Bible is covered with marks. Some figures have been crossed out and replaced. She folds the sheet along the same creases until the paper grows soft. Sugar is nearly gone. Coffee is used sparingly. Dried fruit remains only because it has been saved for sickness and difficult days. One evening, your mother opens the final small bundle of dried apples. The day has been unusually long. The animals found little grass at noon, and the company continued until nearly dark before reaching water. She places the apples in a pot with enough water to soften them. There are too few for a pie or cake. When they are warm, she divides them among the children. Your father receives none. Your mother says she does not want any. He cuts his portion in half and places one piece beside her plate. She eats it after the children have finished looking. The Snake River country stretches ahead. The river itself is powerful, but access to it is not always easy. In places, steep banks separate the trail from the water. Elsewhere, the current moves through channels that are difficult to cross or approach with livestock. Heat returns during the day. Cold gathers quickly at night. The company travels through country that seems to hold both seasons at once. Wagons move across dry ground beneath a hard sun, then camp beneath stars bright enough to reveal frost on the grass before morning. The oxen weaken. Their pace is slower now, and the shape of their ribs shows beneath their hides. Where the wooden yokes have rubbed for months, hair has worn thin. Each evening, your father examines the animals. He runs his hand along their shoulders and checks the skin beneath the yokes. Sore places are cleaned. Leather is adjusted. A folded piece of cloth is placed where wood has begun to rub. Mr. Bennett walks among the teams as well. He studies the animals before discussing the next day's distance. Several families have already abandoned heavy possessions. Others trade stronger animals between teams, placing two healthier oxen together for a difficult ascent and allowing weaker ones to follow behind. The company has learned that the wagon and the animals cannot be considered separately. Everything the family carries rests upon their strength. One morning, the younger man who once argued for faster travel approaches Mr. Bennett before the wagons begin moving. His best ox is favoring one front leg. Together, they examine the hoof. A stone has bruised the soft tissue beneath it. There is no dramatic injury, but the animal should not pull a full load. The younger man asks whether one of his other oxen can be moved forward. Mr. Bennett agrees and helps rearrange the team. The work is completed efficiently. There is no argument about lost miles. Later that day, when another family struggles on a rise, the younger man brings his healthier pair back to assist. He helps connect the chain, walks beside the animals through the climb, and returns to his own wagon after the other team reaches level ground. His pace has changed since Missouri. So has everyone else's. The days beyond the Snake River compress into effort. The travelers wake. They walk. They search for water. They lift wheels over stones, guide animals through narrow places, and measure every patch of grass against what the teams will require by morning. Some campsites are pleasant. Cottonwoods grow near a stream. Fuel is easy to gather. The animals graze until their sides look fuller. Other camps offer little more than a place wide enough for the wagons. The company learns to accept both without expecting either to last. Sarah's notebook grows thick with use. The cover has faded. Several pages carry water stains from the storm. Dust has gathered near the binding, and the pencil marks on the earliest entries have begun to blur where fingers touched them repeatedly. She no longer records every delayed wagon or change in weather. There have been too many. Instead, she chooses details. The first frost west of South Pass. A hill covered with yellow flowers. The day Mrs. Turner traded for fresh onions. The number of oxen lost by a company traveling ahead. A night when wolves called from beyond the firelight but never approached the wagons. Her entries have become shorter as the journey has grown longer. When your sister asks why, Sarah says she will remember the rest. Your sister reminds her that this was the reason for carrying the notebook. Sarah looks at the worn pages. I did not know there would be so much. The Blue Mountains rise ahead in late summer. After months of distant ridges and open country, these mountains appear covered with dark timber. Their slopes hold shadows even at midday. The sight is beautiful. It is also unwelcome. The wagons have already crossed the Continental Divide, but the hardest terrain does not always wait at the highest boundary. The Blue Mountains demand steep climbs, narrow passages, and careful descents. The road enters forest. For the first time in months, trees close around the wagons. The change feels almost unnatural after so much open prairie. Branches meet above portions of the trail. Sunlight falls in shifting pieces. The air smells of pine, damp earth, and decaying leaves. Children who once searched eagerly for shade now find the forest too dark. The wheels strike roots and stones hidden beneath fallen needles. Wagons move closer together because there are fewer paths to choose from. The company can no longer spread widely to avoid dust. Progress slows. On steep grades, teams are doubled. 2 pairs of oxen pull one wagon upward while another waits below. Chains tighten. Drivers walk close to the animals, speaking steadily. The wagons climb a few feet at a time. Everyone who can walk does so. Even the youngest child remains outside unless the ground becomes too rough. Your mother's moccasins have darkened from months of dust and wear. The soles are thinner now, but the stitching holds. Near the base of one climb, she stops to tighten the cloth wrapped around her ankle. The youngest child waits beside her. He has grown quieter during the final weeks. The daily question about Oregon no longer comes every afternoon. He looks up through the trees. Is this Oregon? Not yet. He nods and begins walking again. Rain reaches the company in the mountains. It is not the violent storm of the plains. It falls steadily, cooling the air and darkening the trail. The forest holds the water. Drops continue falling from branches long after the clouds begin to thin. Mud gathers in low places. Wheels carry it upward and release it in heavy pieces. The travelers pull coats around themselves. Canvas covers sag beneath the dampness. Firewood must be split to find dry centers. At night, smoke hangs low among the trees. The company remains in the mountains for several days. Time is measured in climbs and descents rather than miles. On one steep section, the wagons must be lowered with ropes. The trail drops sharply through timber. A loaded wagon allowed to roll freely could overtake its team, injuring the animals or overturning against the slope. Men cut small trees and attach them behind some wagons to create drag. Heavy ropes are fastened to others. Families unload what they can and carry bundles down the hill by hand. Your family's wagon waits near the top. The road below appears narrow and wet. Your father checks the rope twice. Mr. Bennett positions several men behind the wagon. The younger man joins them, wrapping the rope around a tree to help control the descent. Your mother and the children walk down first. From below, they watch the wagon begin moving. The oxen step carefully. The rear wheels slide a few inches, then hold. Rope moves against bark with a low scraping sound. Your father walks beside the front wheel, one hand near the wagon bed. The men above release the rope slowly. For several minutes, the wagon descends at little more than a walking pace. Mud gathers against the rims. The canvas sways. The empty spaces inside allow the remaining supplies to shift, but the ropes hold them in place. Halfway down, one rear wheel slips sideways. The wagon tilts. The men on the rope pull together. The wheel settles into the rut again. Movement resumes. When the team reaches the lower ground, your father checks each animal before examining the wagon. The oxen stand breathing heavily. The younger man coils the wet rope and places it beneath the canvas. Then he climbs back up the hill to help with the Turner wagon. By evening, the entire company has descended. No wagon has overturned. Several ropes are frayed. One tree used for drag lies behind a wagon with most of its branches broken away. The travelers camp close to where the road levels. Supper is late. Everyone's clothing is damp. Still, the fires feel warmer than usual. Beyond the Blue Mountains, the country begins changing again. The forests thin. The land opens into valleys and rolling ground. The company follows routes toward the Columbia River and the settlement at the Dalles. By now, the season has become another traveler moving beside them. Morning frost appears more often. Clouds remain over the western horizon. The adults speak quietly about snow. No one wants to reach the Cascade Mountains too late. At the Dalles, the wagons encounter a place shaped by river, trade, and movement long before emigrant companies arrived. The Columbia runs broad and powerful through the country. Native communities have gathered, fished, and traded along this river for generations. The water connects places the wagons can barely imagine reaching. The emigrants see canoes moving with skill through currents that make them uneasy from shore. They also see the final obstacle between themselves and the valleys to the west. For earlier travelers, the river route was often the only practical choice. Wagons could be dismantled or left behind. Families and supplies traveled downstream by boat or raft through dangerous water. A newer alternative now exists. The Barlow Road crosses south of Mount Hood, allowing wagons to travel overland around the mountain. It requires a toll. It is longer. It is steep, muddy, and difficult. It also allows families to keep their wagons and avoid placing children and supplies upon the Columbia. The company gathers to decide. Some families choose the river. They have heard that the overland road can exhaust animals already near the end of their strength. Boats can reach the lower settlements more quickly when the water and weather cooperate. Mr. Bennett chooses the Barlow Road. Your father agrees. The river has guided much of the journey, but it has also taught the family to respect what cannot be seen beneath moving water. Mrs. Turner chooses the road as well. The company divides. Farewells are quieter than those spoken in Missouri. The travelers have learned how easily people separate on the trail. A family may camp beside another for months, then choose a different crossing and disappear from daily life within a few hours. Addresses are exchanged. Promises are made to meet in Oregon City. Some will. Others will not. The smaller company turns toward the road around Mount Hood. The mountain appears through clouds only briefly. Its white upper slopes rise above darker forests, distant and still. Then mist covers it again. The final road proves no easier for being chosen. Mud deepens beneath the trees. Ascents require doubled teams. Descents demand ropes, drags, and patience. Animals stumble and recover. Travelers push against wheels. Hands blister beneath wet rope. At one campsite, the grass is too poor to satisfy the oxen. The company moves again before daylight and stops near noon, where better grazing can be found. The wagons are lighter than ever. Food containers stand empty. Several boxes have been burned for fuel. Clothing hangs loosely from people who have walked nearly 2,000 miles. The family Bible remains. So does the painted dish, still wrapped between blankets. The child's cloth doll has lost more yarn from its hair. Mr. Whitcomb's walking stick continues west, in the hands of his grandson. Near the final descent into the lower country, the boy offers it to his father, who uses it to test the mud ahead of each step. The stick reaches the bottom before either of them. Then, slowly, the road begins to soften. The air grows wetter. Green returns in shades the family has nearly forgotten. Moss covers fallen wood. Ferns rise beside the trail. Streams move beneath branches heavy with rain. The children notice the smell first. Wet leaves, rich earth, wood smoke from somewhere ahead. A cabin appears between the trees. Then another. Fences emerge. A field has been cleared beside a small house. Cattle stand within rails instead of wandering across open country. The family has seen settlements before, but these buildings belong to the destination rather than the road. People come outside to watch the wagons pass. Some are former emigrants. They recognize the condition of the teams, the stained canvas, and the faces beneath the hats. They offer directions. One woman brings a bucket of apples. The fruit is small and marked from the tree. To the children, it looks magnificent. Each receives one. The youngest bites through the skin before anyone can suggest washing it. Juice runs across his hand. He eats everything except the stem. The company reaches the Willamette Valley beneath a low gray sky. There is no single gate to pass through. No official line marks the end of the Oregon Trail. The road continues into farms, forests, mud, and growing settlements. For several families, Oregon City will be the first stopping place. Others will seek relatives or travel toward land farther south. Mr. Bennett leads the remaining wagons to an open area where emigrants are permitted to camp. The teams stop. At first, everyone waits for another instruction. There is none. The animals are unyoked. They lower their heads toward wet grass. Wagon doors open. Blankets, boxes, tools, and food containers are removed. Not for one evening, but because the family will soon need to decide where they belong. The wagon bed empties. Its wooden floor appears worn and scratched. Pale lines show where barrels stood for months. A dark mark remains where the bean pot once tipped. The interior looks larger than it did on the morning of departure. The youngest child climbs inside and walks from front to back. His footsteps echo faintly beneath the canvas. Your mother unwraps the painted dish. The cloth is dusty, but the dish is whole. She turns it over in her hands and places it on an empty box. Your father carries the family Bible beneath his coat to protect it from the rain. The old shoes tied inside the wagon are removed and set near the firewood. Your mother still wears the moccasins. They have crossed rivers, plains, and mountains with her. One sole is nearly worn through. Sarah sits near the Turner wagon with her notebook. For a long time, she turns the pages from the beginning. The first entry was written near Missouri. The grass is nearly ready. She passes Courthouse Rock, Chimney Rock, the Storm, the Burial, Fort Laramie, South Pass, and the Blue Mountains. Near the final page, she writes the date. Her pencil pauses. Then she adds, "We arrived in Oregon before dark." She reads the sentence once. Nothing else is added. Arrival does not create a finished home. The family will need shelter before winter. Land must be found. Food must be purchased or earned. Tools must be repaired. The oxen require rest, and the remaining money is limited. Tomorrow will contain questions. Tonight contains only rain. It begins softly against the wagon canvas. The sound is familiar, but the family listens differently. No bedding must be rolled before sunrise. No yokes wait beside the wheels. Mr. Bennett will not ride along the line calling families forward. His work as captain has ended, though no one has formally said so. He sits beneath another wagon cover with a cup in his hands, looking toward the teams grazing in the rain. Mrs. Turner and her children settle nearby. Her sons speak about finding work. Sarah places the notebook inside a dry chest. Mr. Whitcomb's grandson leans the walking stick against the wagon where it can be reached in the morning. The family sleeps beneath the canvas one final time. There are roofs nearby, but none belongs to them yet. The wagon remains shelter for one more night. The youngest child lies beneath the quilt and asks whether they will travel tomorrow. Your mother smooths the blanket across him. Not tomorrow. He appears to think there should be another question. None comes. Outside, rain gathers along the canvas and falls from its edge in steady drops. The empty barrels stand beneath the wagon. The painted dish rests safely inside a box. The oxen graze without their yokes. Across the dark camp, wheels that have turned for nearly 2,000 miles remain sunk in the soft Oregon earth. Morning will bring work. It always does. But when the light returns, the wagon will still be here. And for the first time since Missouri, the family will wake without packing its life to leave.